Chapter 1529. Bam! Han Fei didn't want to fight back. However, Neodali roared and his soul was shaken. Immediately afterward, the sky-splitting axe fell from the sky and struck 100 times. He was like a nuclear bomb, crashing into the Great Rift Gorge. This Great Rift Gorge had been swept by the strong wind for tens of thousands of years. It was already extremely hard. However, at this moment, Han Fei left a mark on it. This was the result of passive defense in the face of a body practitioner. As soon as Han Fei opened his eyes, he saw a giant hoof of 100 meters falling from the sky. At that moment, Han Fei immediately bared his teeth. "Woman, I won't fight you because of you. Don't go too far. I'll trample you to death." Moo! He suddenly got up and raised his fist. The crimson fist mark soared into the sky like a pillar of light. Rumble, under the surprised gazes of the venerables, Han Fei's terrifying blow actually blasted Neodali away. Crocodile Tai screamed, "Brother Neo, are you so powerful? A peak-level venerable can surpass me in terms of strength?" The old sheep said, "Did you forget just now? The Bull Demon King claims to be the descendant of the Flying Divine Bull. Although we have never heard of this Flying Divine Bull. Just from the name, we know it's extraordinary." The Python woman also said, "Yes, don't forget that the Bull Demon King has only cultivated for 3,000 years. Among them, he was trapped for more than 2,700 years. Otherwise, he might have the strength of an advanced venerable or even a peak-level venerable." The Golden Tiger also twisted his head and said, "Interesting. A venerable who can fight above his level. The Bull Demon King is indeed a heavenly talent of the Water Buffalo clan. I really want to go down there right now and compete with him." The old bear said, "Look at his physique. He was hit 100 times by Neodali, but he seems to be fine. The Bull Demon King's physique has definitely reached the advanced venerable level." The silver wolf nodded. "It seems that," he said, "that he fought every day in the demon suppressing tower. This should be true. If it weren't for the endless battles, how could he have such a terrifying physique at the peak level venerable level?" However, the elephant said, "More than that. Listen to the sound of the Bull Demon King being hit, the sound of his bones. If I'm not wrong, it should be the golden body." Hiss! Many people who were watching the show took a deep breath. Xiang Tan's words caught their attention. The venerables began to pay attention. Generally speaking, it wasn't impossible for an Exalt Realm expert to attain the Golden Body Realm, but there were differences in the Golden Body Realm. If the Golden Body was not complete, it would not be strong enough. But if it was the indestructible Golden Body, tens of thousands of axe lights fell from the sky. Han Fei didn't want to expose his full strength at the first moment, so he just attacked with brute force. For a time, golden fist marks spewed out, and the invincible will dyed Han Fei's whole body with a layer of golden light. Ooh! The devouring art directly absorbed spiritual energy and energy from the raging spiritual energy ocean in the Great Rift Gorge. Neodali's strength was at the peak of the intermediate venerable, which was a small level higher than Han Fei's. In fact, a minor realm in the Exalt realm wasn't just slightly stronger in theory. But now, he could only see Han Fei attacking with his bare hands. The axe lights all over the sky exploded one after another, and none of them could shake Han Fei at all. Even Neodali could feel the strong recoil force, since Han Fei was not weaker than him in terms of strength. Then, in terms of soul power, Han Fei shouldn't be stronger than him, right? After all, Han Fei was stunned by his roar just now. Moo! Neodali was moaning. Han Fei sneered and moaned as well. The void exploded, and terrifying air waves leaped out of the Great Rift Gorge and rushed straight into the sky. But this time, Han Fei didn't seem to be affected. With a flip of his hand, he grabbed 2 sledgehammers from the void. BM, BM, BM. Han Fei's figure frantically changed in the void. All of a sudden, hundreds of phantoms waved sledgehammers and attacked the sky. This time, it was Neodali who didn't have time to react. Neodali blocked the 2 axes horizontally, and spiritual energy surged from her body as if she was about to explode. However, the terrifying power of the divine hammers forcibly suppressed her explosive power. Bam! 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 The situation was suddenly reversed. Neodali was crazily hammered by Han Fei and was crushed all the way into the rock wall of the Great Rift Gorge, leaving a long ravine. Han Fei stood proudly and looked straight at the sky. I, the Bull Demon King, am not the kind of person who will abandon me. Iron Fan may still be trapped in the demon-subduing tower, but I will concentrate on cultivation and reach the top as soon as possible. Then, I will kill my way back. Don't block my way. The Serpent Woman said, Okay, Dolly. Some things can't be rushed. Brother Neo seems to be a man with a story. Don't embarrass him for the time being. Humph, I'm not that easy to beat. Suddenly, the void trembled, and Han Fei saw a primordial barbaric bull, which was thousands of meters long and had scarlet eyes, moaning. The old goat shouted, Neodali, stop. The Bull Demon King is only at the peak of the elementary level. Why do you even use your primordial great path? Han Fei looked slightly solemn at this moment. However, Han Fei's heart was a little excited. This was exactly the feeling he wanted. Fighting with these people, there would always be new things. When he defeated all the beasts on the 10,000 Beast Island, his foundation would be absolutely solid, and he might even become an advanced venerable. Han Fei grinned. Interesting. Han Fei stepped on the ground, and a large array appeared. Immediately afterward, the law of gravity descended, ready to fight this primordial phantom with the law of gravity. The ape demon roared, Brother Neo, be careful. The law of gravity is useless. After that, Han Fei felt that between heaven and earth, an ancient and vast aura descended. A shadowy figure stomped down from the void. This blow made Han Fei feel that even his soul was trembling. Obviously, it was not a simple attack, but it contained a lot of soul attack elements. Swish! Han Fei reached out and took out the embroidery needle, shook his body, and the embroidery needle spun. The next moment, the invisible spear pierced a hole in the huge phantom. As soon as the sea-quelling bizarre treasure and the heavenly god stab appeared, blood spurted out of Neodali's 7 orifices and splashed in the sky. Han Fei casually spun the embroidery needle a few times and directly put it into his body. He seemed to be fine. Sister, another bull said, Bull Demon King, we're both from the Water Buffalo clan. Why did you attack him so hard? Han Fei, cough, cough. Neodali coughed twice, his eyes full of surprise. Han Fei fought above his level and easily broke through his own law. He defeated him so easily. What did this mean? This meant that Han Fei was indeed a peerless heavenly talent of the Water Buffalo clan. He had never heard of the Flying Divine Bull before. However, as long as he was a bull, anyway, he would give birth to a water buffalo in the future. As for when he would take down the Bull Demon King, Neodali felt that it would happen sooner or later. Wasn't she just Princess Iron Fan? He would just let her be the 4th brother. Han Fei didn't know what Neodali was thinking at this moment. Otherwise, he would definitely spit out a mouthful of blood. Han Fei said leisurely, As I said, I'm a descendant of the Flying Divine Bull. My divine power is unparalleled. You're no match for me. On the Great Rift Gorge, the Venerables were watching with great interest. Even those who were strong enough could see that something was amiss. Big Lion said, Did you see that? The Bull Demon King's weapon is a sea-quelling bizarre treasure, a real king weapon. The Serpent Woman said, Wild Lion, I'm really not surprised when it comes to weapons. After all, the Bull Demon King came from the outside world, unlike our cage, which is quite short of resources. Old Goat shook his head slightly. Xiao Mingwe, did you notice? The power of the Bull Demon King's spear just now has the ability to extinguish souls. However, he hasn't fully mastered it yet. If he can fully master it, with the help of the sea-quelling bizarre treasure, there shouldn't be many mid-level venerables who can resist his blow. Everyone was talking about it. Only Golden Tiger said impatiently, Brothers, what's the use of just talking? True knowledge comes from actual combat. Let me try the Bull Demon King's body first, and see if he has an incomplete golden body or an indestructible golden body. Swish! Huh! On the other side, Han Fei had just defeated Neodali. A roar shook the Great Rift Gorge, echoing endlessly. Golden Tiger laughed. Brother Neo, I heard that you have been stuck at the peak level of a junior venerable for a long time. Then let us help you. Let's see if we can help you jump over this hurdle. Han Fei grinned. Although this tiger was not the one he knew, it was not the tiger he knew. Although this tiger was not the one he knew, he still knew the characteristics of tigers. From their eyes to their steps, they were silently intimidating their opponents. Of course, Han Fei wouldn't be intimidated, although the strength of this tiger was definitely above the advanced venerable level. But why should he be afraid? Han Fei shouted, "Let's fight." Swish, the two of them disappeared into the void at the same time. In the next second, they appeared in the depths of the Great Rift Gorge. Han Fei raised his hand, and the tiger's paw patted on Han Fei's body. And Han Fei's fist mark also hit the golden tiger with all his strength. Bam! Bam! The two of them smashed into the vast sea at the same time like two nuclear bombs. Above the Great Rift Gorge, many people were still eating meat. Neodali was also watching carefully at this moment. Beside him, two girls with bull horns said, "Sister, are you okay?" Neodali shook his head. "I'm fine. This bull demon king is capable. He's more talented than me, and he's also stronger. My water buffalo clan's chance to procreate has arrived." A water buffalo said, "Sister, didn't he say there's a Princess Iron Fan?" Neodali snorted. "She is just a human woman. Compared with the rise and fall of the clan, which is more important? You will know eventually." Chapter 1530. Han Fei's arrival added a lot of vitality to the 10,000 Beast Island. At this moment, a group of people were eating barbecue and shouting above the Great Rift Gorge. Han Fei's performance was not bad, and he was a newcomer, so most of their cheers were for Han Fei. Someone said, "Bull Demon King, punch him. Punch out his big eyeballs. That's Golden Tiger's weakness." Someone laughed. "Brother Bull, scratch him. Golden Tiger is most afraid of tickling." Someone shouted, "Golden Tiger, you can't cheat. You have to suppress your strength. We have so many pairs of eyes watching." At this moment, Golden Tiger was also speechless. This group of bad friends nagged all day long. It was so annoying. However, this Bull Demon King was indeed strong. Even though he had used all kinds of techniques, he still couldn't gain any advantage. Both of them smashed him with their bodies without using any Dao. In one breath, the two of them had punched as many as 1,000 times. If it were someone with poor physique, they might have been smashed to pieces. Even so, the two of them seemed to be in high spirits. The bottom of the Great Rift Gorge was almost penetrated by the two of them. This scene made Neodali and the other golden bulls feel dizzy and their eyes glittered. They were thinking that the water buffaloes were about to rise. With Han Fei's strength, he could even reach the peak in less than 1,000 years. Bam! 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 After fighting for the time it takes for a stick of incense to burn, Golden Tiger felt sore all over. However, Han Fei still looked as if nothing had happened. Golden Tiger roared, "It's confirmed. Brother Neo, you've cultivated an indestructible golden body?" "What? Indestructible golden body? Wow, really? Oh my god, Brother Neo has only cultivated for 3,000 years. Indestructible golden body? Doesn't it mean that he could defeat a demi-king with just a golden body?" For a moment, all kinds of exclamations came one after another. Neodali's eyelids twitched crazily. Indestructible golden body? This Bull Demon King's strength was beyond his expectations. Han Fei responded, "To be honest, in the Demon Suppression Tower, I fought and ate every day. If I give you 3,000 years like this, you will also be able to cultivate the indestructible golden body." Golden Tiger laughed. "I'm going to use my true strength. With Dao Rhyme on me, it won't be easy to block." Han Fei nodded slightly. "That's right. Buzz." In the next moment, Han Fei discovered that the Golden Tiger, who had suppressed its strength to that of a mid-level venerable, was suddenly 30% stronger and faster. Boom! In an instant, the two of them exchanged hundreds of blows. Han Fei felt that some of his power was absorbed by the Golden Tiger every time. In this way, the Golden Tiger didn't just increase its strength. This was equivalent to the Golden Tiger borrowing Han Fei's strength to attack Han Fei. Since this was the Golden Tiger's great Dao, it would not be easily destroyed by ordinary opponents. At this time, as the Golden Tiger's opponent, if he wanted to resist this power, he would either have to display extraordinary strength or use a sharp weapon to prevent the power from dissipating. In an instant, Han Fei came up with many solutions. In fact, Han Fei could totally imitate Golden Tiger. However, he obviously couldn't act so monstrously. With his current strength, he had to think of a way to defeat the Golden Tiger's great Tao. Bam! 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 At this moment, Han Fei was beaten back again and again. Because he was only resisting and didn't attack, Han Fei was blasted into the ground. The Golden Tiger, on the other hand, fought fiercer and fiercer. The Golden Tiger roared, "Fight back. Only by fighting back can I squeeze out your strength, which will be of great help to your breakthrough." Han Fei roared, "I will certainly fight back, but not now." The breakthrough of strength depends on understanding and epiphany. Only when these 2 points are achieved can the foundation be better polished, and everything will come naturally. Han Fei was kicked here and there by the Golden Tiger like a sandbag, and he completely resisted it with his golden body. However, Han Fei's mind was thinking quickly. At this time, the old turtle said leisurely, "Why can't energy be manipulated like spiritual energy? The difference is that spiritual energy is the most direct energy, which you can see. And the energy you can't see is actually a wisp of the great Tao of heaven and earth. Where does the energy of food come from? It's the nourishment of heaven and earth. So, this energy is everywhere." Han Fei's heart trembled. Yes, he had always used spiritual energy as the source of power. Spiritual energy was actually a kind of energy. Han Fei had never considered the relationship between spiritual energy and the energy that burst out in a battle. In other words, spiritual energy could be used as food, but it could also be used as bullets. It was an all-rounder. The energy in the air could only be transformed into energy in a battle after it was circulated through the body. However, since it was a kind of energy that had been stolen, why couldn't he just detonate it? With a thought from Han Fei, the golden fist mark blasted out crazily. The sky was full of golden light, and many people shook their heads slightly. Someone said, "Brother Nyo, it seems that you haven't understood it yet." Someone said leisurely, "After all, this is the first time he has touched the great Tao of Golden Tiger. It's normal that he can't figure out a way to crack the great Tao of heaven and earth." Jiao Mengyue slightly shook her head. "I don't think so. Have you noticed that the Golden Tiger's power seems to be a bit unstable?" Bam! 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 Suddenly, everyone saw that the Golden Tiger's attacks were unstable, and an unknown power in his body was detonated. Many people took a deep breath. How'd Han Fei do it? Lei Bao said. He deliberately detonated his power, but it was absorbed by the Golden Tiger. Then, using some unknown method, the energy absorbed by the Golden Tiger detonated. Old Yang nodded. That's right. The Golden Tiger, who was fighting Han Fei, felt it the most. He clearly sensed that the detonated power absorbed the spiritual energy that was about to be detonated. The detonation of the spiritual energy affected the detonation of the energy in his body. Once the energy was detonated, his spiritual energy would no longer be precise, and his attacks would no longer be accurate. In a battle between venerables, it was extremely dangerous for an inaccurate attack. For a moment, the Golden Tiger restrained his power of great Tao, and the battle between the two returned to normal. However, it was hard to tell who would win unless the Golden Tiger used his full strength. As a result, the Golden Tiger's strength gradually rose. When he became a peak-level, mid-level venerable, Han Fei seemed to be struggling. However, this scene caused the crowd to sigh endlessly. It meant that Han Fei's strength was indeed a whole level higher than what he should have been. They didn't know that Han Fei simply used his own strength and didn't use the power of great Tao. Huff! Han Fei thought to himself, the peak-level, mid-level venerable is already my limit. Of course, the Golden Tiger was much more powerful than regular mid-level venerables. For example, compared to Nyo Dali might be relatively weaker. However, they were definitely at the level of heaven's chosen ones, and they were very powerful. I'm done, the golden tiger roared and said, if we keep fighting like this, when will it end? Hey, brother Nyo, did you really fight like this in the demon's ceiling tower? Were there so many experts for you to fight in the demon's ceiling tower? Han Fei said with a smile. There were certainly few experts, but I wasn't one when I went in. I'm only at the seeker level. Speaking of explorers, there are a lot of them. The golden tiger stretched his body and looked at the ape fiend. The ape fiend grinned. Brother Neo, can you still fight? Han Fei grinned. I can. Keep fighting. The battle with the ape fiend obviously had no result. The strength of the ape fiend was similar to that of the golden tiger. Therefore, the final battle was reduced to the size of a fist. It seemed that both of them were bruised and swollen. Han Fei lived like this for more than 10 days. Every day, Han Fei barbecued and everyone ate. After eating and drinking, the battle began. All the venerables watched the battle. Han Fei didn't stop for a moment. He just kept fighting and fighting. On this day, Han Fei fought with the last venerable deer named Lu Han for 3,000 rounds. The 100 venerables who didn't go out on the Beast Island had all been defeated by Han Fei. Han Fei couldn't help but glance at Neodali. Neodali rolled his eyes. No. Han Fei looked at the golden tiger again. The golden tiger curled his lips and said, boring. No, you are a lunatic. You're simply a war maniac. You have fought more than 100 battles, but you still haven't made a breakthrough. Seeing that no one was fighting, Han Fei stopped. In the past 10 days, he had benefited a lot. He had been beaten countless times and beaten back countless times. He had comprehended the great chaos of many demonic beasts here. With the comparison, Han Fei was more sure that his great chaos were very strong, ridiculously strong. After landing, Han Fei picked up a piece of barbecue and asked, "Are you sure you don't want to fight?" Hum. A group of people shook their heads. What's the point of fighting? You are just an immortal cockroach. Relying on your indestructible golden body, you can fight anyone. Even if you suppress your strength, you can still fight evenly with them. Jiao Mengyue said, Brother Neo, if you want to fight, there are plenty of places. Why don't you go to fight the sea demons or the forest of horrors? With your strength, you can easily kill your opponent when they least expect it. Han Fei had been waiting for this. However, he still said, that's good. However, I may need to cultivate in seclusion for a few months. He had comprehended too many things recently. If I can master all of them, maybe I can really break through to the peak level junior venerable. Neodali said, go to my place. Han Fei was about to refuse when he heard Neodali say, I just want you to cultivate in seclusion. No one will disturb you. Do you think I will eat you? Han Fei thought for a moment and agreed. Anyway, his identity as a member of the Water Buffalo clan had been confirmed. Even if he was found out, Neodali would reduce his suspicion for the sake of the Water Buffalo clan. Thinking so, Han Fei immediately said, okay, thank you for your hospitality. First update, asking for votes, end of this chapter. Chapter 15:31. He could learn from others' strengths and make up for his shortcomings by fighting with those in the same realm or even higher realm. Han Fei's seclusion time had always been short. In Neodali's place, Han Fei set up a seal and cultivated in seclusion for a whole month. During this month, Han Fei certainly spent it in Forge the Universe. In the previous dozens of days of battles, Han Fei had learned too many things and needed to simulate them again and again to gain insights one by one. During this month, Han Fei didn't just spend 4 months. It took him more than half a year. In the first 8 days, Han Fei asked Little White to spit out a wisp of chaotic energy. Then he upgraded the time flow in Forge the Universe to 8 times that of the outside world. When the time flow in Forge the Universe became 8 times that of the outside world, this was a very obvious double growth pattern. If he wanted to continue to improve Forge the Universe, the required chaotic energy would become 100 wisps. The next time he upgraded it, the time flow here would become 16 times faster. What did that mean? It meant that Han Fei's 1 year of cultivation was equivalent to 16 years of cultivation for others. Perhaps for some experts, 16 years passed in the blink of an eye. For people like Old Turtle, it might not even be enough time to take a nap. However, for Han Fei, it was a very long time. From the time he first came to the Scattered Stars Island until now, it had been less than 16 years. He, on the other hand, had grown from a dangling fisher to a venerable. Of course, the reason why he grew so fast was related to Old Han and the others and what he had experienced. If he had been cultivating and forged the universe, his growth might not have been so fast. However, the change in the flow of time was of great benefit to him. However, how could he get these 100 wisps of chaotic energy? Did he have to rely on Little White to spit out one wisp a month? Even if Little White completely became a machine that could spit out chaotic energy, it would take more than 8 years. Even if Little White could spit out chaotic energy and forge the universe, he would have to wait for a year in the outside world. However, Han Fei didn't want to put all his hopes on Little White. He had become a venerable, but he had never had time to study how a venerable absorbed chaotic energy. At this moment, Han Fei only left 3 wisps of chaotic energy on him in case of emergencies. Before leaving Forge the Universe, Han Fei sat cross-legged on the ground, and a strand of hair like chaotic air danced on his fingertips, moving from his left hand to his right hand, and then from his right hand to his left hand. With a thought, Little Black and Little White fused and looked at it with the yin-yang divine eyes, but they still couldn't see through the chaotic gas. Han Fei murmured, "This is the essence of the energy of heaven and earth. In fact, it is very similar to the invisible power of the great path contained in spiritual energy." Seeing that Han Fei was studying the chaotic energy, the old turtle said, "You're not wrong. But if you want to see through the chaotic energy from spiritual energy, you need to disassemble the spiritual energy better and better. The reason why you can feel the connection between primal chaos aura and spiritual chi is because your spiritual chi disassembly rate is over 70%. However, this is far from enough." Han Fei couldn't help but smile. "How is that enough?" The old tortoise said unhurriedly, "It won't be enough. As the spiritual chi disassembly rate gets higher and higher, it will just be easier for you to absorb the chaotic energy. Even if the spiritual chi disassembly rate exceeds 90%, it is impossible to gather a wisp of chaotic energy in just a few days." Han Fei couldn't help but frown. "What about kings?" The old turtle said, "I'm talking about venerables. When you reach the Pioneer Sea realm, it will be different. However, if you want to become a king, you still need to accumulate a lot of chaotic energy. Otherwise, you won't have enough power to support you to become a king." Han Fei pondered. According to what the old turtle said, it seemed that he would need a lot of chaotic energy in the future. However, the old turtle then added, "It's useless for you to just look at this wisp of chaotic energy now. Ever since you got your hands on the chaos chi, you haven't done any serious research on it. When you were in the Chu sect, you detonated 2 strands, but that was not enough. You have to experience its power firsthand." Han Fei nodded slightly. Soon, Neo Dali's 2 sisters were named Neo Kursin and Neo Pampan. At this moment, the 3 of them were chatting outside the cave house. Neo Pampan said, "Sister, after all, this bull demon king has just come to our beast island. Isn't it not good for us to be too close?" Neo Kursin said angrily, "Yes, sister." That bull demon king was infuriated. "We 3 sisters have been taken advantage of by him, but he seems to have suffered a big loss." Neo Dali shook his head slightly and said, "For the rise of the Buffalo clan, it is acceptable in any case. After all, he is the only bull we have met so far. The main thing is we have no choice." Neo Kursin said in annoyance, "Sister, can we really not get out of this cage? Since there is the bull demon king in the outside world, there must be other bulls, right?" Neo Pampan nodded repeatedly. "Yes, sister. That bull demon king is too arrogant. Although he has the bloodline of the divine flying bull and seems to be very strong, he is still infuriating." Neo Dali said, "Okay, now is not the time to talk about this. This bull demon king has just come to the Beast Island. If he really survives for thousands of years, I'm afraid it will be different. This person is extremely arrogant and very conceited. Even if we want to carry on the family line with him, we can't do it in a short time. Han Fei, who had just come out of seclusion, was dumbfounded at the moment. If I had known this, I wouldn't have turned into a buffalo. The seal was lifted, and Han Fei's burly figure walked out of the seal, only to see Niodali and the other two looking at him. Niodali wondered, so fast? After fighting 100 venerables in a month, you have comprehended all aspects? Han Fei nodded slightly. I have benefited a lot from comprehending it every day. I have comprehended everything that should be comprehended. Of course, Niodali knew why Han Fei wanted to fight them one by one. In fact, who didn't know? However, this kind of improvement was limited. Han Fei had been imprisoned for so long. After coming out, it was completely possible for him to break through to the junior venerable realm by fighting others. Even in the eyes of the venerables, at Han Fei's level, breaking through to the intermediate venerable realm might only take an instant. Therefore, Han Fei had fought 100 venerables in a row and still hadn't made a breakthrough after seclusion, which surprised everyone. However, these venerables didn't know that if Han Fei really wanted to break through to the junior peak level, he could have done so long ago. However, the path that Han Fei took didn't allow him to make a breakthrough so casually. If he really did that, Han Fei felt that one day he would also fade into the crowd and become a heavenly talent in everyone's eyes. However, becoming a heavenly talent? That would be even more difficult. After this seclusion, Han Fei only improved his strength by a few dozen times. As for the rest, even his spiritual power didn't break through by much. However, Han Fei's comprehensive strength had decreased a lot. This point couldn't be directly expressed by data. Seeing that there seemed to be a little joy in Han Fei's eyes, Niodali couldn't help but look at Han Fei, raised his head, and said, "Why? Do you still want to go and fight with them?" Han Fei shook his head slightly and said, "No. The rest is not something that can be brought to me by fighting. I need to test it in a life-and-death battle." Han Fei put on a cold smile. "Ordinary battles are no longer beneficial to me. A life-and-death battle will not break out among our own people. Then, I've been suppressed by the sea demons for more than 2,700 years. Now that I'm finally out, it's time to settle the score." At this moment, Han Fei's eyes were full of fanaticism and surging blood, which stunned Niodali. Niodali said, "Well, the sea demons that suppressed you may not be the same as the sea demons in Blackblood City. Besides, although you are indeed not weak, your limit is only the peak level of an intermediate venerable. Once you really start a life-and-death battle with an advanced venerable, you are likely to die." Han Fei sneered. Whether it's the White Shell Royal City or Blackblood City, they all belong to the sea race and are all sea demons. If you are a siren, you are my enemy. Also, who told you that my real strength is only at the peak level of an intermediate venerable? Niodali was stunned. What did Han Fei mean? It was natural for him to hate sea demons. If he were trapped for thousands of years, he would definitely take revenge too. However, a month ago, Han Fei didn't seem to be holding back in a battle. In those battles, apart from proving that he was very good at fighting, he didn't show any strength that could compete with an advanced venerable. Could it be that in the battle a month ago, Han Fei suppressed his strength? At this moment, the void trembled, and Crocodile Tai walked out of it. Crocodile Tai said with a smile, "Brother Nyo, it seems that the battle a month ago was not enough. I didn't force you to make a breakthrough." Han Fei smiled and said, "I've benefited a lot." Niodali said, "Crocodile Tai, how did you know that the Bull Demon King just came out of seclusion?" Crocodile Tai said with a smile, "I can't watch you all the time. It was Old Goat who knew that Brother Nyo had come out of seclusion and asked me to ask Brother Nyo a question." Oh, Han Fei thought of Old Goat. That guy's strength was unfathomable. He guessed that he should be half a king. Han Fei couldn't help asking, "What's the question?" Crocodile Tai said, "Old Goat wants to know if you need to go to the immortal city of the humans because you have the bloodline of humans. I heard that the humans are not in a good situation now, and because they cultivate many immortal creatures, although they don't fight against us, they have alienated us from the Beast Island." Han Fei narrowed his eyes slightly and then shook his head decisively. "No, Although I have come into contact with humans in the demon-suppressing tower, my top priority now is to improve my strength. Instead of going to the immortal city of the humans, I might as well go to battle. I want to feel the power of the sea demons in the Black Blood City. Ha! I knew it. Brother Nyo, you definitely won't go to the immortal city. That place is gloomy. It's really not a good place to go. With that, Crocodile Tai turned his head and looked at the void. Old Goat, did you see that? Brother Neo is not interested in the immortal city of the humans, right? Old Goat's voice came leisurely. I was just asking. Bull Demon King, since you don't want to go to the human side, do as you please. You have seen the Venerables on the Beast Island. You can go to the Life and Death Gorge and have a look. Maybe it will help you make a breakthrough. Second update. Asking for votes into this chapter. Chapter 1532. Hanfei set off with Nyo Dali and the other two. Crocodile Tai and the others did not follow. Just like what Old Yang, who was also Yang Shinji, had said, other than the two battlefronts, the Venerables who stayed behind to guard the 10,000 Beast Island also had to go out to patrol the sea from time to time. This patrol range was much larger than Han Fei had imagined. Under normal circumstances, it would take an Exalt Realm expert half a month to patrol the ocean. In fact, he knew what they were patrolling for. After all, the Monster Beast Alliance ruled over a large area. There were a lot of marine creatures in this area. It wouldn't be a big deal if these creatures were only explorers. However, if they tried to reach Exalted Realm, they would immediately be marked as targets to be killed. At least, if Han Fei was in power, he would do the same. As for this Life and Death Gorge, it was also the place where the myriad Beast Island and Black Blood City fought. Why was it called the Life and Death Gorge? Neodali explained, the Life and Death Gorge is the lowest level of the entire cage. It's less than 200,000 miles wide. Both sides were sealed cages, so that became the place where the Demon Beast Alliance and Black Blood City fought. Han Fei frowned slightly. Is Black Blood City very strong? How many Venerables have they and our Demonic Beast Alliance arranged at the Life and Death Gorge? Neodali said in a sweet voice, don't ever underestimate Black Blood City. The number of Venerables in Black Blood City is second only to our Myriad Beast Island. Including you, our Myriad Beast Island now has 298, while Black Blood City has 287. Han Fei thought to himself, it was 287 before, but now it may be less than 280. Nevertheless, he still asked, how are you so sure? There are so many venerable ones? Neodali, there's Old Goat doing the calculations. That's Old Goat's great Tao divination. Han Fei narrowed his eyes slightly. You can calculate how many venerables there are? If the Old Goat could even predict this, would it be able to predict that there was something wrong with him? Han Fei was just thinking about that when the old turtle said, don't worry. You're a person with great luck, and there's something wrong with your fate. Therefore, your fate is messed up and there is no way to calculate it. Hearing what the old turtle said, Han Fei realized that it was indeed hard to calculate his strange background. Old Han wasn't calculating, but planning. He had included everything in his plan, except for himself. Therefore, Old Goat might have asked Crocodile Tai to come and ask him just to test him. He wanted to see how he would react to the human race. However, Han Fei clearly knew that the forces inside the Wall of Death had been fighting against each other for tens of thousands of years. The fact that the human race had yet to go extinct meant that they could still persevere. Going alone? It was useless. Buzz. Han Fei and Neodali stepped into another teleportation array. After leaving the teleportation formation, Zhang Xian continued flying forward. This was already the 8th teleportation array they had passed. Han Fei couldn't help asking, how far is the Life and Death Gorge? Neodali said, we're only halfway there. Han Fei thought of something and calculated secretly. Every time he and Neodali left the teleportation formation, the distance they flew was about 100,000 miles. Based on his understanding of teleportation arrays, the teleportation array, constructed by the Demon Beast Alliance, could only teleport a distance of 200,000 kilometers at most. After all, they were just demon beasts, not as good at arrays as human spirit gatherers. Moreover, he also saw many abandoned teleportation arrays along the way. Thinking about it, it must have been abandoned for some other reason. In this way, according to 15 teleportation arrays, the distance of teleportation arrays alone was about 3 million kilometers. Plus the distance between teleportation arrays, the distance from the Beast Island to the Life and Death Gorge was about 4 million to 5 million kilometers. According to Nyodali, there were cages on both sides of this road, especially on the side of the Life and Death Gorge. Its width was only 200,000 kilometers. For Venerables, this was not a distance at all. With the teleportation array, it wouldn't waste much time. About less than half an hour later, Han Fei and Nyodali had already arrived at the so-called Life and Death Gorge. As soon as they entered the Life and Death Gorge, Han Fei felt a lot of death energy. The spiritual energy and energy here were even more violent, and Han Fei could even feel the weak water from the Life and Death Gorge. Swish! Swish! As soon as they came out of the teleportation array and flew forward for about 50,000 kilometers, a perception swept over them. When these perceptions swept over, there was also a voice. Oh, it's really the bull of the Water Buffalo clan. Brother Bull Demon King, I thought it would be a long time before we could meet again. But it's only been more than a month, and we've already met. One after another, Venerables walked out of the void. Among them, the one in the lead turned out to be a centaur. Yes, Han Fei was dumbfounded. You could be a human or a horse, but why do you have a centaur holding a death scythe in your hand? What's going on? In addition to this brother horse, Han Fei also saw a creature with scales all over its body and a bit like a donkey. Han Fei was dumbfounded. What? What kind of creature is this? A month ago, he fought with a female Qilin on the Beast Island. Now looking at this horse, this donkey, suddenly, Han Fei had an incredible guess in his heart. Seeing Han Fei's puzzled expression, the centaur immediately smiled and said, "Little brother Bull Demon King, I am the commander of the Life and Death Gorge. Next to me, this is the most talented of my sons. Now, he has become a venerable, and his name is Ma Qilin." In Han Fei's heart, there seemed to be 10,000 iron-head fish galloping before he was still thinking about a question. That was, why were there so many powerful creatures on the Beast Island? Logically speaking, it was extremely difficult to become a venerable. To maintain the rule of the beasts, they had to keep reproducing. Han Fei thought they were making little beasts for no reason. However, he never expected that they were also making little beasts. Of course, although he was very surprised in his heart. But on the surface, Han Fei grinned and said, "Oh, Demon King, nice to meet you, Commander Ma. Just now, I was wondering what kind of creature Brother Qilin is. You look so handsome." Ma Qilin seemed to be rarely praised. Hearing Han Fei's praise, his eyes immediately lit up. "Brother Bull, you flatter me." Han Fei smiled and said, "Not at all. In my inherited memory, Brother Qilin's handsome appearance is really extraordinary. I really envy you." Ma Yuan and Nyodali were both stunned, and the others who had just arrived were also slightly stunned. What happened? Did the Bull Demon King and Ma Qilin hit it off? Of course, Han Fei wouldn't deliberately hit it off with Ma Qilin. It was just the first time they met. However, it was not good to be too polite, so Han Fei immediately turned his eyes to the others. Then, Han Fei saw a cyan fox, a rhinoceros, and most of them appeared in human form. Han Fei guessed that there were probably wild boars and cats. Among them, there was a little girl who seemed to be only 7 or 8 years old. What kind of creature was she? She had 2 ears on her head, but they didn't look like rabbit ears. Han Fei cupped his hands. "Everyone, I'm the Bull Demon King, a junior peak-level venerable. I'm good at many combat techniques. Nice to meet you." Immediately, the cyan fox responded, "Brother Bull, when Lightning came to ask Dolly for help this morning, she already told us. Well, I'm Greenwood, an intermediate venerable, not yet a peak-level venerable." The 7 or 8-year-old girl immediately said, "Brother Bull, I'm White Ferret, an advanced venerable." A fat man said, "Brother Bull, I'm Fat 7, a junior peak-level venerable." For a moment, everyone was talking at once. However, what really shocked Han Fei was the little girl who seemed to be only 7 or 8 years old. Among all of them, this little girl had the most complete transformation. Except for her 2 cute ears, she was a perfect human. Unfortunately, this little girl called him Brother Bull. Damn it, who could resist her? Ma Yuan said, "Okay, let's disperse for the time being. Don't let the sea demons find out anything. Bull Demon King, you've just arrived. Why don't you watch a few battles and see the situation in the life and death gorge first?" Han Fei immediately retorted, "Commander Ma, I think we may be able to take this opportunity to kill 3 or 5 sea demon venerables. What do you think?" Huh? The venerables who were about to leave all turned around and looked at Han Fei in surprise. The little girl, the white ferret, tilted her head and looked at Han Fei. "Brother Bull, it's easy for you to say. Do you think it's easy to kill venerables? Kill 3 or 5 of them." Ma Qilan also said, "Brother Bull, you can't play in the army." Ma Yuan flipped his hair and then looked at Han Fei. "Bull Demon King, do you mean you're going to fight?" Han Fei nodded slightly. "I'm new here, so I don't know those sea demons. I think I can take this opportunity to kill 3 of them." The group of people all took in a deep breath. Neodali said to Han Fei telepathically, not afraid that Ma Yuan would hear him. She said, "Are you crazy? Do you think it's easy to kill venerables?" Ma Yuan looked at Han Fei again. "In that case, let's try the next battle first. In the past 2 years, Blackblood City hasn't fought many battles. Let's see why they don't want to fight anymore." Han Fei and Ma Yuan looked at each other. Of the two, one was sizing him up, and the other was looking at him proudly. The others seemed to notice something subtle. The corners of the white ferret's mouth curled up. "Interesting. Third update. Please vote. I'm going home late today. I'll update later." End of this chapter. Chapter 1533. At the venerable level, there were actually no weaklings. After all, who didn't cultivate step by step? The venerables of the Yin-Yang Heaven who were Han Fei's enemies had all been killed. Only the 1,000-star city venerables couldn't be destroyed. As for the aristocratic families, Han Fei couldn't touch them yet. Before coming here, when Han Fei met Old Han and Li Daxian in the Level 3 fishery, they made a bet on where he would go. Among them, one of the options was the Waterwood Heaven. Han Fei didn't want to go to the Waterwood Heaven. After all, there were still many venerables on the 4 battlefields of the Waterwood Heaven. If he really wanted to go there, with his current strength, he could definitely kill a few venerables. Maybe he could even steal the Ice God Gorge. However, compared with the Waterwood Heaven, the Wall of Death was a brand new place and an extremely dangerous place. Han Fei felt that the danger must be relative. For example, when looking for the entrance to the Wall of Death, if he happened to find the area occupied by the Blackblood City or the area occupied by the Forest of Horrors, the degree of danger would be high. Of course, before coming in, Han Fei didn't know the distribution of forces inside. At most, Han Fei knew that an island flew out from inside and there were demonic beasts on the island. That was all. At this moment, Han Fei wasn't worried. The most likely threat to Han Fei was the False King. If he didn't have the Gemini Divine Technique, he wouldn't be able to escape if he accidentally encountered a False King. But he had forged the universe. What was there to be afraid of? In the outside world, if he failed the king's tribulation, he might die directly. However, if he failed the king's tribulation here, for some reason, many people didn't die. He became the so-called false king. At this moment, Han Fei had a purpose to fight as soon as he arrived. Most importantly, Han Fei had to repair the damage to his soul. After all, if he wanted to make a breakthrough, his soul must be full. Otherwise, if his soul was damaged at the peak elementary level, it was likely to affect his foundation when he was in the intermediate venerable realm. Life and Death Gorge. When Han Fei really stood on this super gorge, he knew how big this so-called Life and Death Gorge was. Ma Yuan said, "Bull Demon King, the distance of the wall of the cage is the width of the Life and Death Gorge. Its length was also close to 200,000 kilometers. You need to know that once you enter the gorge to fight, your life and death will depend on yourself. For tens of thousands of years, we in Blackblood City have our own rules. That is, those who participate in the battle, unless they escape on their own, are not allowed to help." Ma Yuan had just finished speaking when he heard the White Marten say, Little brother Neo, besides individual battles, you can also have group battles in the Life and Death Gorge. Do you want me to go with you? Neodali also said, that's right. 100,000 kilometers wide. Such a large place is enough for 10-odd venerates to fight at the same time. Ma Yuhan said, for the first battle, you can choose to fight one-on-one. I trust you. If it's a group battle, I don't recommend it. It requires careful consideration. Everyone looked at Han Fei. However, Han Fei's lips curled slightly. Everyone, let me fight 2 matches alone first. Everyone, be it the Demon Beast Alliance or Black Blood City, there were quite a few Explorer-level powerhouses. Generally speaking, the Life and Death Gorge was for them to fight. Such repeated training was an important reason why the Demon Beast Alliance and Black Blood City could produce so many venerates. As the most important war zone, the Life and Death Gorge usually had more than 50 venerates stationed here, in case a super war broke out suddenly. Such a super war had happened several times. Once, because of a riot in the Forest of Horrors, both sides sent out 100 venerates and fought fiercely. At that time, the number of people stationed in the Life and Death Gorge was less than 50. As a result, they were ambushed by more than 200 venerates, and 13 of them died on the spot, shaking the cage. 80% of the Explorer-level demonic beasts didn't escape. Since that war, the Demon Beast Alliance had made a rule. No matter what, the number of venerates in the Life and Death Gorge must not be less than 50. No matter what happened, they had to ensure it. On the Beast Island, 100 venerates had to be stationed every day. At this moment, there were more than 80,000 Explorer demonic beasts cultivating in the Life and Death Gorge. Among the 80,000 explorers, 326 were demigods. In theory, they had all reached the demigod level, so the probability of them reaching the venerable level was not small. And these demigods were the regular visitors of the Life and Death Gorge. Would they die or enter the venerable level? Both sides were fighting. The Demon Beast Alliance was like this, and so was Black Blood City. The other side had even more demigods than the Demon Beast Alliance. At this moment, Han Fei stood on a towering mountain, looking at the Ice God Gorge. Just 20,000 kilometers away, a great battle broke out. Beside Han Fei, there were more than a dozen venerates watching the battle. Although there were many venerates on the Life and Death Gorge, it was still 200,000 kilometers away. Therefore, there were still many venerates patrolling the battlefield in the sky above the Life and Death Gorge. The venerates who didn't enter the battlefield couldn't take action, but they had to keep an eye on the battlefield. These spectating venerates were a bit like referees. If the other side played any dirty tricks, they could detect it in time. Besides, they had to prevent the other side from breaking the agreement and suddenly launching a large-scale attack, causing serious damage to their side. There were precedents of this kind of thing in Black Blood City. At this moment, someone was watching the battle in the void. Suddenly, he saw a figure stepping through the void and coming over. It was none other than Ma Yuhan, who personally brought Han Fei here to challenge him. This was the convention. With a big shot here, he had to be tough. The two flew about 100,000 kilometers toward the Life and Death Gorge. There was a mine here, and the mountain was quite high. In Han Fei's perception, there were at least 10 venerates from the Demon Beast Alliance or Black Blood City squatting here. Ma Yuhan looked at Han Fei. This is called the Battle Cliff. If there's anything, just shout here. The venerates of the Demon Beast Alliance were stunned when they saw Ma Yuhan coming in person. But then they saw Han Fei and immediately realized that this was probably the Bull Demon King. At this time, Han Fei didn't transform perfectly, but let 2 horns grow out of his head. The reason why Han Fei did this was mainly to confuse the opponent. Otherwise, the sea demons would definitely be vigilant when they saw a demon beast that looked exactly like a human. Han Fei's thoughtfulness was immediately praised by Neodali. A cow with horns looks like a bull. Han Fei was speechless. I'm just confusing the opponent, understand? Seeing Han Fei coming, many venerates seemed to realize something and took a deep breath. The battle between the venerates was about to begin. Han Fei took a step forward and yelled loudly, "Stinky fishes and shrimps of Black Blood City. All of you listen up to this bull. I'm the Bull Demon King of the Water Buffalo clan. Today, I'm here to challenge you. Stinky sea demons, who dares to come here and fight me to the death? After Han Fei shouted, in the life and death gorge, those who were still fighting fiercely stopped fighting and began to evacuate. Those who could challenge in a place like the life and death gorge were all venerates. It had been almost 3 years since a battle between venerates broke out in the life and death gorge. Who would have thought that the Beast Alliance would be the first to challenge them? However, many sea demons were puzzled. Weren't there only Neo Dali, Neo Kursin, and Neo Pampan in the Water Buffalo clan? Why did a Bull Demon King suddenly pop up? In an instant the void shook. Around them, sea demon venerates appeared one after another. The explorers quickly withdrew, and the venerates came one after another. A shrimp soldier pointed a spear at Han Fei. Bull Demon King? Since when did the water buffaloes have a bull? Han Fei sneered. You stinky shrimp, who are you pointing at? Is your grandpa Nyo someone you can casually order around? The shrimp soldier's eyes turned cold. Humph! Be careful, or I'll tear your mouth apart. Moo! Han Fei turned into a water buffalo, and his low moo shook the void. Han Fei stepped on the void, and white smoke billowed from his nostrils. So what? You stinky shrimp, come down and fight me one-on-one if you dare. I'll break your shrimp bones off and pick my teeth. Han Fei didn't hide his strength as a peak-level junior venerable. Because he was the one who invited Han Fei, his opponents were naturally at the same level as Han Fei. The moment the shrimp soldier came down and talked to Han Fei, he had already fallen into Han Fei's trap. In terms of swearing, how could these poor sea demons be a match for Han Fei? Well, to be precise, this was their daily life. Since Han Fei lived in the Age of Doom, swearing had become a necessary skill for him. Seeing that the shrimp soldier was furious, Han Fei continued to shout, Little shrimp, do you dare to fight me? If not, kneel on the ground and call me Grandpa. Grandpa, I've eaten shrimps before, and more than one. Little shrimp, why don't you speak? Are you deaf? Oh no, you're a shrimp. You must be blind. While Han Fei was shouting, many venerables of the Demon Beast Alliance looked at each other in bewilderment. This Bull Demon King has just come to the 10,000 Beast Island. How can he be so arrogant? Fat Seven also said leisurely, if I were Shrimp Sea, I wouldn't be able to stand it. Ma Chilin sighed. Brother Nyo, you're very eloquent. If I had such eloquence, I would have won every time I challenged you. Mountain Cat walked next to Ma Chilin with light steps and said disdainfully, Then challenge me. Ma Chilin was stunned by Mountain Cat's words. Whether it was the Demon Beast Alliance or Black Blood City, everyone knew that if they dared to challenge, they dared to fight. Usually, both sides would send out the strongest ones in the same realm. Han Fei's challenge was being guessed by the sea demons of Black Blood City. Someone said, This man is indeed from the Water Buffalo clan. His aura and realm can't lie. The Water Buffalo clan has a strong physique and can attack the soul. However, this man has never shown up, so I don't know what his Tao is. Wentzi, he probably came out to break through to the junior peak level venerable. Are you sure you can defeat him? The shrimp soldier had been cursed for a long time and couldn't find a way out. In any case, he was also a junior peak level venerable. Your physique is strong, but my attack is strong. Why should I be afraid of you? Fight! While Han Fei was cursing, the shrimp soldier suddenly stepped forward. The only bull of the Water Buffalo clan. Humph! From today on, the Water Buffalo clan will only have female members. First update. Asking for votes. End of this chapter. Chapter 1534. One-on-one battles and group battles were certainly different. In this life and death gorge, the two of them could choose a random place to fight and decide the winner. During this period, no one else could intervene. In fact, the confrontation between the demonic beasts and the sea demons had been going on for a long time. In order to show their strength and encourage their explorers to cultivate, when Han Fei and Shrimp Soldier decided to fight, the commanders of both sides shouted, Open the array! Han Fei was stunned for a moment and thought, What array? Neo Dali transmitted his voice. During the battle between the venerables, because the power is too great, in order to prevent accidents, we need to seal the life and death gorge in the back. Once the life and death gorge is sealed, if you want to retreat from the battlefield, you must return to 20,000 kilometers from our position. Han Fei smiled. Admit defeat? That's impossible. What if you can't return 20,000 kilometers? Neo Dali nodded. Then you have to keep fighting. It's not a glorious thing to admit defeat. So, if you don't even have time to admit defeat, it means that the gap between the two sides is too big. The challenger's life or death is not so important. After Neo Dali said that, Ma Yuan said, there is another purpose of sealing the battlefield. Your venerable battle will be watched by hundreds of thousands of people, and the explorers on both sides can learn from it. Han Fei's eyelids twitched. Really? The white mink said, what do you think? In the venerable battle, you must use all your strength. Your image represents the image of the 10,000 Beast Island. Most of the time, the two sides are at the same level, and in the end, no one can defeat the other. This will lead to a lose-lose and a draw. In this way, the reputation of both sides can be taken care of. Ma Yuan said, Bull Demon King, my only request for you in this battle is not to admit defeat. That Shrimpwensi is very strong. He is an ancient mutant with the bloodline of Anomalocaris. His attack skills are amazing. Don't underestimate him. Han Fei nodded and stepped into the void, standing in the life and death gorge that was in a mess and full of rubble. After all, there were battles here all year round, and there couldn't be any buildings here. Many mineral veins had already been destroyed by the fighting between the two sides. In the life and death gorge, the explorers had basically retreated. At this moment, the life and death gorge had already been sealed. These explorers could only see a large patch of smoke. And in the smoke, there was a picture which was the confrontation between Han Fei and Shrimpwensi. In fact, Han Fei's demon purification pot rarely displayed information when it was faced with highly intelligent creatures, especially human-shaped ones. Since Shui Wensi claimed to have the bloodline of an ancient mutated species, his strength shouldn't be weak. However, how could Han Fei allow them to show off? Han Fei's heart thumped, and the invincible will condense from his body. A giant golden bull shadow enshrouded Han Fei. On the Monster Beast Alliance's side, many people looked at Neo Dali. Someone said, Dali, this Bull Demon King sorcery is very different from yours. Someone praised, this technique looks quite extraordinary. It shouldn't be weak. Neo Dali was also stunned. Han Fei had never used this combat skill on the Beast Island. It seemed that this was his special skill. Neo Dali said, Everyone, don't worry. The Bull Demon King will only be stronger than me, not weaker. Oh, the white ferret couldn't help tilting his head and glancing at Neo Dali. You mean they are in the same realm? Neo Dali nodded. I'm talking about the cross realm. All the beasts, Ma Yuan's eyes instantly lit up. No wonder the Bull Demon King wanted to fight as soon as he arrived. So, he wanted to trick the demons. However, could he defeat Neo Dali? The talent and strength of this Bull Demon King was probably much more powerful than they had imagined. In the field, Han Fei's invincible will condensed into a giant buffalo shadow. Han Fei sprinted in the air like a crazy bull. As Han Fei stretched out his hand, water droplets condensed in the air. What was it if not infinity water? However, what the infinity water condensed at this moment was not in the shape of a water droplet, but in the shape of a harpoon, a bit like a sea demon's weapon. But upon a closer look, it was more like an ordinary fork. Moo! Han Fei roared, and his voice contained the power of soul attack. His roar shook the life and death gorge, and the running ghosts panicked. Han Fei's speed was getting faster and faster, and in the blink of an eye, he rushed into a golden beam of light, which looked extremely domineering. Seeing this, Shrimpwensi already knew that Han Fei was extraordinary. However, how could he, Shrimpwensi, be an ordinary shrimp? Shrimpwensi arched his body, and 100-meter-long phantom appeared. Suddenly, a weird shrimp with an octopus head and a scorpion body appeared. Shrimpwensi's two arched tentacles, which looked like octopus tentacles, turned into two star-shaped wheels with a swish. As soon as the wheels appeared, They were covered in glittering starlight and rushed at Han Fei like two big wheels. The speed was so fast that in the blink of an eye, they spun hundreds of thousands of times as if they were going to cut Han Fei to death. On the sea demon's side, someone laughed and said, "The water buffaloes are nothing more than boorish men. No matter how strong his impact is, how can he resist Wenxi's sharp teeth that can compete with ultra-quality divine weapons?" On the Demon Beast Alliance's side, many people frowned. Fatty 7 shuddered. Although Brother Nyo's strength is extraordinary, isn't he underestimating Prawn Wenxi? Is he going to resist Shrimp Wenxi's sharp teeth wheel with his body? Neo Dali wasn't too worried, because he already knew that Han Fei had an indestructible golden body. The Venerables were quite calm, but the explorers were dumbfounded. Someone exclaimed, "Is the new Venerable of the Water Buffaloes so direct and violent? Is he charging like a bull? Can't he play some tricks?" Someone said, "Don't worry. The Water Buffaloes have unparalleled bighorns. They are certainly not afraid of Shrimp Wenxi's sharp teeth wheel." The distance between the two sides was getting closer and closer. Han Fei was still in the air, and Shrimp Wenxi had already turned into a human form, wearing a shiny crimson armor. His body shook, and 18 pairs of deformed blades floated out of his back, turned into light, and charged at Han Fei again. In Shrimp Wenxi's hand, there was a long spear. He didn't believe that no matter how strong Han Fei's physique was, could he resist his sharp teeth wheel and 36 sharp blades head-on? Chilla. Han Fei was about to collide with the sharp teeth wheel. Han Fei suddenly stretched out his left hand and waved it casually in the air, and a flash of silver light illuminated the sky and the earth. And at the moment this silver light appeared, Han Fei stepped on the ground, and the lines of Taoist patterns instantly condensed into a coiled turtle array. Clank, clank, clang, BM. In the life and death gorge, a circle of golden ripples spread out at an incredible speed. Outside the life and death gorge, a demon pointed the figure on the mist and said, "Look, the bull demon king rushed over and knocked away the sharp teeth wheel." Someone sucked in a breath of cold air. Hiss! He only used his body to break through the sharp teeth wheel? Someone sighed. Is he crazy? In the venerable realm, Ma Qilin was excited. Brother Nyo is amazing. He can resist the sharp teeth wheel with his body alone. I'm afraid his physique is not ordinary. However, the next moment, Bobcat said, but his golden phantom was shattered. Just now he used an array. Let's see how he can block the 36 sharp blades behind. Knock on the heavenly gate. However, as soon as Bobcat said that, Han Fei pierced the void with his spear and stabbed at Jiao Wenxi from more than 500 kilometers away. Greenwood wondered, how much power will he consume from such a long distance? Many people exclaimed, "He's fighting from so far away." Jiao Wenxi sneered. "Do you think you're a peak-level venerable? You're so far away. Even if I stand still, what can you do to me?" However, in the next second, everyone's face froze. The 500-kilometer void suddenly shortened. Jiao Wenxi appeared directly 5 kilometers away from Han Fei. "Not good, the Great Tao Space." A sea demon shouted, "Wenxi, attack with all your strength." Ma Yuhan's eyes lit up. "Good, the Great Tao Space. The Bull Demon King is indeed extraordinary." Neo Dali was excited. Han Fei didn't show this Great Tao Space before. What Han Fei showed before was gravity, right? Is he walking on 2 paths at the same time? Puff! Jiao Wenxi originally wanted to see how this Bull Demon King could block his 36 sharp blades. However, the distance was shortened in an instant, and he didn't even have a chance to run. His body was directly penetrated. Ooh! Not only was his body penetrated, but Han Fei's blow was so terrifying that it directly poked a hole in the void. In an instant, thousands of space cracks appeared, and Jiao Wenxi was covered with cuts and bruises. In a hurry, with a thought from Jiao Wenxi, the 36 sharp blades returned to his body, like 36 rays of light. However, when he did this, he saw a smile appear at the corner of Han Fei's mouth. At the next moment, Jiao Wenxi's face suddenly changed. He felt that his soul was caught by something. Something was trying to drill into his soul. Moo! At this moment, hundreds of beasts devoured his soul, and the terrifying roar of a bull appeared directly in Jiao Wenxi's mind. BM, BM, BM in everyone's eyes. Jiao Wenxi spurted blood from his 7 orifices. He was actually attacked by Han Fei's soul technique. Go to hell. Under the horrified gaze of hundreds of thousands of people, Han Fei punched down and directly blasted Jiao Wenxi's body into pieces. At this moment, maybe Jiao Wenxi was not dead, but his soul had been controlled by Han Fei. Han Fei opened his mouth and gently spat. Explode. Rumble. A huge mushroom cloud rose straight to the entire life and death gorge. Kacha! In the sky, a red crack exploded like thunder, crisscrossing the void. At that moment, a rain of blood fell, and a venerable died. This battle lasted less than 30 breaths of time. A junior peak-level venerable died, just like that. Most of the time, Han Fei was running wildly. At this moment, the audience was dumbfounded, and countless people gasped. Fat 7 took a breath. *T. Ma Qilin was dumbfounded. This, Jiao Wenxi, is dead? Neodali swallowed. Looking at the proud figure in the rolling waves, her heart couldn't help pounding. Outside the life and death gorge, Neo Kursin and Neo Pampan looked at each other in shock. Neo Ponpon's body trembled. Is a bull so powerful? Second update. Please vote. End of this chapter. Chapter 1535. Moo. In the field, the bull demon king roared. The venerables of Blackblood City are a mess. How dare they come out and fight me, the bull demon king? I like to ask, is there only such trash in Blackblood City? Han Fei stood proudly in the middle of the battlefield, looking heroic and heroic. He breathed out clouds of smoke from his mouth and pointed in the direction of the venerables of Blackblood City with a fierce expression. In fact, not only the Demon Beast Alliance was shocked by Han Fei, the Blackblood City side was also shocked. How strong was Shi Wenxi? Everyone was clear about this. He was definitely among the top of the junior venerables. Few people in the Demon Beast Alliance or Blackblood City could beat him. But even such a prodigy was slain in a mere 30 breaths. He did not even have the chance to escape. From the moment Han Fei used the world's end near at hand, to the moment Shrimp Wenxi was pierced, to the moment his soul was captured and the hundreds of beasts devoured his soul. During this period, Han Fei's movements were so smooth that he didn't give Shrimp Wenxi any chance to escape. On the Blackblood City side, countless venerables stood outside the life and death gorge with solemn faces. At the same time, they were all furious. Someone guessed, this bull demon king may be a hidden heavenly talent of the Demon Beast Alliance. He only showed up when he reached the venerable realm. It must be because his path is too difficult and he is stuck at the peak of the junior venerable realm. Someone else nodded. This person can kill Shi Wenxi in 30 seconds. He is definitely not an ordinary person. His physique, divine soul, combat skills, and divine soul attack skills are almost flawless. I'm afraid he has reached the peak of the junior venerable realm. Although the sea demons were shocked by Shi Wenxi's death, it didn't seem to be the first time. Therefore, they didn't have any intention of rioting or breaking the rules. Instead, they were all looking for excuses. Although what they said might be right, in the ears of the demon beasts, it sounded more like an excuse for their defeat. Ma Yuan showed a faint smile and immediately looked back. Lei Xiao returned to the Beast Island to report the good news. Yes, Kacha, a black panther suddenly turned into a bolt of lightning, and its entire body was already sprinting out. In fact, the purpose of reporting the good news wasn't just to inform them. It was also to boost the morale of the troops in the rear. Slaughtering a venerable, no matter where it was a big deal. How difficult was it to become a venerable? Naturally, venerable ones like them knew about it. In this cage, everyone was fighting for the sake of becoming an exalt. Even so, many people were unable to reach the threshold of the venerable realm until their deaths. But now what do they see? In the hands of the Bull Demon King, the sea demon venerable of Blackblood City couldn't even last 30 breaths. Han Fei looked back at the life and death gorge with a creepy smile. Seeing that creepy smile, Neodali suddenly felt that something was wrong. Today, when Han Fei just came out of seclusion, he showed this expression. Han Fei abruptly turned his head around. Stinky fishes and shrimps of Black Blood City. Has my unparalleled bravery struck fear into your hearts? Is there anyone in the primary venerable realm who dares to challenge me? If there aren't any, I can fight a mid-level exalted expert. Hiss. Is he crazy? Even the white ferret couldn't help but put away her carelessness. She couldn't help but look at Neodali and ask, Xiaoli, can this guy really surpass realms? Greenwood said, Dolly, this is not a child's play. Don't brag just because he's from the Water Buffalo clan. Neodali didn't know how to answer. She said, Bullsh asterisk T, why would I lie to you? I really can't beat him. The venerables all gasped slightly. Neodali couldn't beat the Bull Demon King? Neodali was a peak-level, mid-level venerable. If he fully exerted his strength, his power would be extremely terrifying. He had fought in the life and death gorge for more than 30 times, but no one could kill him with his physique and strength. On the side of the sea demons, he's going too far. He wants to surpass realms to fight. Does he know what he's doing? I'll do it. I'll blow him up. Damn, this bull must be killed by my knife. Get out of the way, I'll do it. When CI is my best friend, and I'm only half a step away from the peak-level, mid-level venerable. If necessary, I can make a breakthrough by force. I must kill this bull today. Immediately, both the Demon Beast Alliance and Black Blood City were in an uproar. Han Fei was too arrogant. A venerable was not a hidden fisher or a law enforcer. How could he surpass realms just because he wanted to? However, the mermaid leader of Black Blood City said, Crab Qianlong, don't underestimate the enemy. This man is indeed a peak-level junior venerable. Since he dares to challenge a mid-level venerable, it means that his strength has been accumulated to a certain extent. I'm sure that he can fight a mid-level venerable. The big red crab was shaped like a centaur, with half of its body combined with the crab's body. Its upper body had a pair of crab pincers and two weird claws that looked like chains. The tail of a chain was attached to the leader's giant axe. At this moment, it roared. Although the space Dao is powerful, it's not invincible. My soul-locked Dao is not afraid of any Dao. Hey! Han Fei was about to continue shouting when he saw an ugly big crab suddenly drilling out of the void. In Han Fei's eyes, the pincers were like a hammer, a pair of scissors, and two big axes at the end of the chain. It seemed that its whole body was a weapon. Han Fei sneered. Sure enough, as long as I fight beyond realms, these people will jump out voluntarily. In this battle, Han Fei couldn't attack as aggressively as he did just now. In the battle just now, he only absorbed a little more than 900 points of soul power. He would have to kill 3 more people of the same level to repair his damaged soul. Therefore, even if he killed this crab, he still couldn't repair his damaged soul. Therefore, this battle must be difficult. Only by being difficult could he trigger the next battle and give the opponent some hope. Only by triggering the next battle could he completely repair his soul. Han Fei's invincible will turn into a golden bull shadow again, wrapping him in it. Han Fei pointed at the crab and shouted, I've eaten countless crabs in my life, and I'm known as a crab maniac. People like you only deserve to be a delicacy on my plate. Outside the life and death gorge, Ma Qilin said enviously, I don't know if Brother Nyo is telling the truth or not. Look at your eloquence. You must be a cultured bull. Neodali was reacquainted with Han Fei. When fighting with his own people, the Bull Demon King was always modest. However, when fighting with the enemy, the Bull Demon King was domineering and arrogant. At this moment, Neodali began to wonder about the gender of the water buffaloes. Is this the aggressiveness that only bulls have? Hearing Han Fei's dirty words, the venerables all felt that he was going to win, so they all relaxed. Crab Qianlong roared, You're courting death. Take my dragon-slaying axes. Swish, swish. The two chains on Crab Qianlong's body wriggled out, and the chain seemed to be attracting the power of the void. Like two black dragons, the axes above their heads roared up. The two axes crossed and slashed at Han Fei. A locking technique? Han Fei immediately noticed that something was wrong. The double dragon giant axes seemed to have locked onto his soul. Han Fei immediately realized that this move not only hurt the body, but also killed the soul. It was definitely not an ordinary combat skill. The venerables of the Demon Beast Alliance all looked solemn. Han Fei raised his left hand, and a hair-like visible power appeared in the void. Wow, chaotic chi. This bull demon king is going to use chaotic chi? A sea demon shouted, Crab Qianlong, don't be reluctant to use the chaotic chi. Use it. When Ma Yuan and the others saw Han Fei use the chaotic chi, they all frowned. Although the chaotic chi was used as a trump card, it was the first chaotic chi that a person obtained after becoming a venerable. However, the first chaotic chi that a person obtained after becoming a venerable could only be 3 wisps at most. Ordinary people could only get 2 wisps. In the future, if they wanted to obtain more chaotic chi, they needed to constantly improve their understanding of spiritual energy and the Great Tao. Usually, many people couldn't condense the first wisp of chaotic chi in the world alone when they were in the beginner venerable realm. Even for mid-level venerables, it was very difficult. The ability to condense chaotic chi was usually mastered by the advanced venerables and the peak-level venerables. The main reason was that when they reached the advanced and peak level, they were already extremely strong. Every step of improvement required a lot of thinking. In order to reach the peak level, cultivators had to improve their ability to disassemble spiritual energy and improve their understanding of the Great Tao. And this problem could be ignored in the beginner and middle-level venerables. Therefore, the growth speed of these 2 realms was relatively fast. At this moment, as soon as Han Fei used the chaotic chi, Crab Qianlong almost cursed. How could this guy use such precious power so easily? It seemed that this bull demon king was indeed stuck in the bottleneck of the beginner venerable realm. Once he won again and again, this person would definitely have a chance to make a breakthrough. With this in mind, Crab Qianlong gritted his teeth, and a wisp of chaotic chi appeared in front of him. Immediately afterward, the chaotic chi dispersed and was swallowed into his body. This was the first time that Han Fei had used chaotic chi. When this power completely dissipated in his body, Han Fei suddenly felt that his flesh and blood all over his body suddenly expanded. Every inch of his muscles seemed to be full of power, as if he had been injected with stimulants. Moo! Han Fei let out a low roar and suddenly plunged down like an ox. He shook his fists, and a huge vortex appeared behind him. On his fists, golden light and red light were shining. Bam! Bam! In the next moment, 2 sky-reaching fist marks broke through the void and blasted at Crab Qianlong. However, the sacrificing fist marks were not aimed at the opponent's black dragon axe, but at Crab Qianlong. It was the first time that Han Fei had used the sacrificing fist marks with both hands at the same time. He didn't expect it to be so easy. Even though the 2 sacrificing fist marks were blasted out, Han Fei still felt that he had the power to defeat the opponent. At this moment, neither Han Fei nor Crab Qianlong dodged. After all, both of them were using lock-on techniques. So, it all depended on which one was tougher. Third, asking for votes. End of this chapter. Chapter 1536. What did it feel like to use the chaotic gas? Han Fei felt that it was as pleasant as smoking an opium pipe, as if he had turned on the nitrogen engine in a racing car, and as satisfying as his soul. All in all, when Han Fei punched out, he felt that more power was about to burst out his body. Berserk? It felt like a berserk combat technique, similar to Lu Renquang's violent war body, and also like the mad bloodworms. Looking at the 2 giant dragons that were bombarding him, Han Fei smiled and suddenly punched out a series of golden fist marks. This scene was like countless shooting stars streaking across the night sky. Han Fei found that when he used a wisp of chaotic gas, his energy was inexhaustible. As long as he wanted to, his body and soul could be united as soon as the energy left his body. In addition, Han Fei also had a weird feeling. When he used the chaotic gas, it seemed that the chaotic gas could absorb the spiritual energy contained in his body. Therefore, when the chaotic gas took effect, the spiritual energy was also consumed. The power in the spiritual energy was also being absorbed by the chaotic gas. At this moment, Han Fei understood why he had to understand the chaotic gas first if he wanted to absorb it. As a matter of fact, the primal chaos chi was extracted from spiritual energy. Just like the feeling when he just became a venerable, when the spiritual energy was transformed into the chaotic gas. After the transformation, the part of the spiritual energy lost its power and naturally passed away. Boom, boom, boom. There was not much time left for Han Fei to think. While he was thinking, the opponent's black dragon axe had already slashed at him. It crushed hundreds of invincible fist marks along the way. But when it reached Han Fei, it was already exhausted. However, although it was exhausted, its power was not small. Han Fei had a chance to crush the two axes. However, Han Fei gave up on it. He let the two dragon axes hit him, let the axe light envelop him, and sent his body flying 100 kilometers in the sea. Compared to Han Fei's acting, Crab Qianlong was also shocked. One of his pincers was going to raise the hammer, and the other was looking for an opportunity to clamp Han Fei to death. However, Crab Qianlong discovered that Han Fei's two fist marks were getting stronger and stronger in the air and were as powerful as his dragon axe. Dong, dong, dong. The giant hammer also hammered repeatedly in the void. In the end, after hundreds of hammer strikes were dispersed, Qianlong smashed the two hammers in his hands with all his might. Only then did he barely manage to disperse the power of the sacrificial punch. However, he was also sent flying dozens of miles away by the recoil. The speed at which everything happened was just too fast. Therefore, Xie Qianlong wasn't surprised that Han Fei was blown back hundreds of kilometers. After all, he was a level higher than the Bull Demon King. Moreover, he could also use the chaotic energy. If I can't even suppress him with this, how can I be considered a peak middle-level venerable? Bull Demon King. Brother Nyo, Ma Qilin and Fatty 7 yelled at the same time with nervous expressions on their faces. Fatty 7 said, "Hey, why aren't you guys nervous? It's obvious that there's still a gap between Brother Ox and Qianlong." Ma Qilin also said, "Father, do we have to remind Brother Ox? It's too risky to fight someone of a higher level." However, at this moment, the White Ferret said casually, "Two idiots." Ma Qilin. Fatty 7. The White Ferret said, "Didn't you see that Xiaoli wasn't panicked? Xiaoli said just now that the Bull Demon King is stronger than her. How can he be defeated by Qianlong in terms of strength or attack?" Ma Qilin exclaimed, "Are you saying that Brother Ox did it on purpose?" Fatty 7 was also dumbfounded. On purpose? Why did he give in to his opponent? At this moment, the Bobcat said, "Have you forgotten? What did the Bull Demon King say before he joined the battle? He said he would kill a few of them first. This guy has a big appetite. This is only the second one. He obviously doesn't want to stop now. If he crushes Qianlong again, do you want him to fight an advanced venerable?" Ma Yuhan smiled. "Yes, this Bull Demon King is brave and smart. However, I wonder how he will fight in the next battle." Ma Qilin was stunned. "No, Dad, do you mean that Brother Ox will definitely win this battle?" Ma Yuhan glanced at his son and said leisurely, "You have to think carefully to observe the battle. Sometimes, in addition to the battle itself, you also have to consider the human heart." Of course, the White Ferret and the others could tell that, because Nyo Dali said that Han Fei was stronger than her. Nyo Dali certainly wouldn't lie to them. So, what they saw now could only be that Han Fei was lying to them. Sure enough, when Han Fei drew a long ravine on the bottom of the sea, he was bleeding from all his orifices. Half of the bull's horn was broken. Many parts of his body began to crack. Moo! With a tap of his foot, Han Fei took a few steps and stood in the void again. He waved his hand, and the bull, trident transformed by the infinity water, returned. Han Fei's body suddenly changed into a raging bull more than 30 meters in size. The old turtle in Han Fei's body was dumbfounded to see this scene. He felt that Han Fei was about to let go of himself. By becoming so big, Han Fei was deliberately consuming the chaotic energy. Besides, what's the use of turning into a bull? Do you want to hit it with your head? The problem is that you're AF** king fake bull. However, in the next moment, Han Fei began to dig his hooves. Every time Han Fei dug his hooves, huge waves surged in the water. Han Fei shouted, "The wrath of the god of war, Bull's spirit." Moo! At that moment, the bull trident was broken. Within 100 kilometers, the sea was surging. As Han Fei rushed out, he saw 100 kilometers of sea surging like knives. The knife wave set off a unique undersea wave on the bottom of the sea. This surging wave, almost synchronized with Han Fei, rushed towards the crab Qianlong. On the Demon Beast Alliance's side, countless explorers held their breath. Too strong. This move of the Bull Demon King was too powerful. If they were hit by such a terrifying torrent of knives, they would be torn into pieces in an instant. The crab Qianlong also looked solemn. However, he didn't panic much in his heart. As it turned out, this Bull Demon King was indeed very strong. Given his terrifying physique, he might not be able to resist a blow from the crab Qianlong at all. However, a series of bubbles popped out of the crab Qianlong's mouth. These bubbles rapidly condensed, and like pieces of ice crystals, they sealed themselves within. That was not all. This was just a passive defense. As a peak-level venerable, how could he only passively defend himself in the face of a peak-level beginner venerable? The crab Qianlong adjusted his posture and rushed toward Han Fei. As the crab Qianlong rushed out, the two chains followed him like two long ribbons. However, the ribbons were intertwining rapidly and intertwining like fried dough twists. And the two big axes on the chains dragged seawater and followed behind him. From the outside, this scene looked like the crab Qianlong was running wildly, dragging a super large water ball countless times larger than his body. Inside the ball, there are also two big axes. On the sea demon's side, someone grinned. The power of the crab Qianlong's Great Ball Axe technique is among the top 10 techniques of our Black Blood City and the Demon Beast Alliance. This Bull Demon King is bound to lose. Someone sneered. Does he think it's an arrogant technique? I'm afraid it only looks powerful. In fact, it's just that the chaotic energy has provided him with too much power and made him overconfident. He doesn't know how he can block the attack of the crab Qianlong when the energy is too scattered. On the Demon Beast Alliance's side, everyone looked confused too. Lynx glanced at Neo Dali and asked in confusion, "Dali, is he much stronger than you? Are you sure he'll be fine facing such a fierce attack from the crab Qianlong?" Neo Dali also frowned and said, "He's indeed much stronger than me. It was just that he had never used these combat skills and great arts before, and he doesn't look weak at all." While everyone was discussing animatedly, Han Fei had already collided with the crab Qianlong. The crab Qianlong was instantly entangled by billions of blade lights. Even so, whenever the blade approached, the water-shaped blades would be shattered into pieces. And the big ball behind him rose into the air too. The diameter of the ball had reached 1,000 meters. Han Fei was facing the sky at this moment, with two sledgehammers in his hands. "Dumb, dumb, dumb." Han Fei roared coldly. "Do you think you're the only one who can use hammers?" The shadows of the hammers and the crab Qianlong were bombarding each other crazily. Seeing this, Neo Dali immediately said, "I know this technique. He used it before. It's very powerful and can completely suppress me." Hardly had Neo Dali finished speaking when he saw Han Fei being hammered into the ground. Everyone looked at Neo Dali and then at the battlefield and nodded slightly. It seemed that Han Fei was pretending again. Rumble. A visible ripple spread out for nearly 1,000 kilometers from where the sledgehammers hit. The sea demon side had already begun to cheer. Someone shouted, "Let it be arrogant?" Even a venerable would have been blown into pieces by such a strike. Someone grinned hideously. "This man deserves to die." Someone said casually, "It's only natural that the crab Qianlong can win." Does the Bull Demon King really think it's so easy to fight someone of a higher level? However, the booing became fewer and fewer as time went on, because they saw that the power of the blades didn't stop but grew stronger and stronger. At this moment, the crab Qianlong was still being swept by the infinite blade lights. Suddenly, he saw a red light bombarding the heavenly crystal on the ground. An enormous fist mark blew the crab Qianlong into the sky. In the next moment, a figure appeared above the crab Qianlong. As soon as the crab Qianlong's eyes narrowed, Han Fei found that he was completely confined. The crab Qianlong laughed aloud. Water buffalo, do you really think you can defeat me? Let's see how you break the eye of confinement. At this moment, Han Fei was enveloped by a green pillar of light and couldn't move at all. However, Han Fei wasn't as panicked as the crab Qianlong thought. He smiled slightly. Explode, the infinity water exploded. Because it didn't enter his body, the crab Qianlong didn't notice it at all. At this moment, it suddenly detonated and shattered his shell. Then, the rest of the infinity water was also shattered at close range. Mu, the 100B Soul Devourer, was activated. Han Fei easily walked out of the void confinement. Han Fei pulled out a knife from the void and slashed at a drop of essence blood in the void. The void lines were all launched. In Forge the Universe, the nautical panorama stopped spinning and the blade lights stopped. In the sky, the red crack reappeared and a rain of blood poured down. Another venerable died. Chapter 1537. Under everyone's gaze, Han Fei created a miracle. After being hit by the terrifying attack of the crab Qianlong, theoretically, even if he didn't die, he should be reborn from a single drop of blood. However, Han Fei simply punched back. Then, he used some unknown method to kill the crab Qianlong. The problem was that Han Fei stopped the crab Qianlong from being reborn from a single drop of blood, which was the most amazing thing. Seeing this, Ma Yuhan said to someone next to him, "Go back and report the good news." Cough, cough. When Han Fei's body stabilized, everyone found that one of his arms was dangling, and his body was full of cracks. More than half of his battle clothes were torn, revealing his explosive muscles. Besides, Han Fei's aura was very unstable at this moment. After a full 2 or 3 breaths of time, this kind of aura finally stabilized a little. Many people's first reaction was that Han Fei was either crippled or had reached the critical point of a breakthrough. That strike just now seemed like a perfect counterattack in a hopeless situation. What did this mean? It was often a sign of a breakthrough. There were many strong masters on the Life and Death Gorge. Among them, there were several Half-King Realm Masters. On the Demon Beast Alliance's side, in addition to Ma Yuhan, there were 2 other Half-King Realm Masters on both sides of the Life and Death Gorge near the wall of the cage. It seemed that Han Fei had tried his best to control the fluctuations of his aura, but he could still be detected. Obviously, Han Fei's every move couldn't escape the eyes of these Half-King Realm Masters. Immediately, someone's face changed. Not good. Brother Neo hasn't made a breakthrough because he's not under enough pressure. Is he going to quit or not? Someone said solemnly, "This is the best time for a breakthrough." If the crab Qianlong could last a little longer, Brother Neo would definitely make a breakthrough. But now that he's in the middle, if he quits, he may have to wait for a few years. Ma Yuhan shouted, "Bull Demon King, come back." Ma Yuhan's voice was not shy. Even he felt that Han Fei's current state was not right. The crab Qianlong was not the strongest existence among the mid-level venerables. If Han Fei challenged it again, the opponent would probably be the strongest mid-level venerable. Han Fei gritted his teeth, and white air spurted out of his nostrils. He seemed to be very unwilling to give up. On the other side, on the sea demon's side, countless people were shocked. Han Fei could actually kill enemies of higher realms. This person's talent was truly terrifying. If he managed to break through to the intermediate venerable realm, he might become the strongest intermediate venerable realm expert in the cage after a few hundred years. The moment Ma Yuan shouted, the merman expert swept his gaze over, and someone immediately shouted, "Demon Bull King, right? Were they going to enter the arena just like that? Isn't it hard to break through at the critical juncture? If you have the guts, why don't we fight again?" Someone shouted, "Bull Demon King, as long as you admit defeat today, we will watch you die. But you are a coward. A true expert dares to face all challenges before him." Someone scolded, "Demon Bull King, if you have the guts, stay here and don't leave. Quit while you're ahead? Is this your so-called insolence? If that's the case, how can you be worthy of being an expert?" For a time, the people of Black Blood City clamored non-stop, all asking Han Fei to stay and not leave. And behind Han Fei, someone was also shouting, "Brother Bull, don't be fooled. We've killed 2 venerables today. We've earned enough. Brother Bull, don't listen to these sea demons nonsense. They're just trying to bully you with numbers. Bull Demon King, you can come back. You've earned enough today." Boo! Han Fei absorbed the last wisp of soul power and glanced at the information in his eyes. His soul power had recovered to 78,673 points. Only a little more than 1,000 points away from the current limit of his soul power. As long as he hunted down a peak-level venerable, his soul power might be restored. At this time, he was asked to retreat. How could he retreat? He couldn't retreat even if he was beaten to death. Moo! Han Fei took a breath, and the violent energy and spiritual energy around him all surged into his body. In the eyes of outsiders, the cracks on Han Fei's body were recovering at a speed visible to the naked eye. But after a while, Han Fei seemed to have recovered. However, no one thought that Han Fei had really recovered. The injuries caused by the Battle of Venerables were not as simple as healing the external injuries. However, Han Fei's actions made the eyes of many sea demons light up. Someone said, "The brains of the water buffaloes are not very good. If we stimulate him again, he'll definitely stay." Someone scolded, "Bull Demon King, stupid cow, don't run if you have the guts. I'll chop you under my feet in 3 slashes." Someone sneered, "Bull Demon King, let's fight one-on-one. I'll easily turn you into a cow." Han Fei looked at the sea demons who were swearing, only feeling that these people's language was very poor. In the end, they didn't make any progress. Although Han Fei's heart was calm, on the surface his face was already flushed. His 2 nostrils were spewing white gas. Han Fei suddenly turned his head. "I want to fight a group battle." Wow! Ma Yuan was slightly taken aback. White Martin, Lynx, Greenwood, Fei Qi, Ma Qilin, and Niu Dali were all stunned. Fight a group battle? Fighting a group battle was much more difficult than fighting a one-on-one battle. If it was a one-on-one battle, that would still depend on their own means. However, if it was a group battle, it would be easy for them to scheme against others. Except for Ma Yuan, the other 2 half-king realm powerhouses said, "Bull Demon King, don't mess around. A group battle is not a casual fight. If you're careless, you may lose more than you gain." However, Han Fei looked straight at Niu Dali. Seeing Han Fei's cold expression, Niu Dali's heart did a flip. Is he doing this on purpose? Does he want me to persuade Ma Yuan? Han Fei said, "I want to fight a group battle." Han Fei said this to Niu Dali. Niu Dali immediately understood and hurriedly said to Ma Yuan via voice transmission, "Commander Ma, I think we can fight." Ma Yuan glanced at Niu Dali. The Bull Demon King has already shown the power of an intermediate venerable. The other party will definitely use this reason to directly send the combat power of an intermediate venerable. If the other party only sends intermediate venerables to hunt the Bull Demon King, it will be extremely disadvantageous for him. Niu Dali couldn't help but remember what Han Fei said when he came here today. He said, "Who said that his combat power stopped at the peak of an intermediate venerable." Now, the Bull Demon King seemed to be confident that he could persuade Ma Yuan. So, Niu Dali immediately took a breath and said with a firm look in his eyes, "I believe him." Ma Yuan looked at Niu Dali. "Are you sure?" Niu Dali nodded. "Yes." Although he didn't know why, Ma Yuan felt that this Bull Demon King might not be simple. So he replied, "Okay." With that, Ma Yuan looked at the sea demons and shouted, "Spirit mermaids and mermaids, do you hear that? Do you dare to fight in a group battle, or are you afraid? If you don't dare to fight, then today's battle will end here." The spirit mermaids and mermaids were the commander-level powerhouses on the sea demon's side. When Han Fei said he wanted to fight in a group battle, he had been thinking about Han Fei's purpose. Although he knew that the Bull Demon King was very extraordinary and might have the power to fight, but to fight in a group battle, it was impossible that he didn't have a purpose. The first thought in the spirit mermaid's mind was that Han Fei wanted to help him make a breakthrough in the battle with the power of a team. Anyone who could make a breakthrough in the battle was a tough guy. To achieve a breakthrough in battle, one needed to have extremely strong control over one's strength. While bearing the pressure of the breakthrough, he had to fight. If he was distracted, he might be interrupted if he was careless. However, there were also benefits. Once he made a breakthrough in the battle, he could change the situation of the battle. Especially for a heavenly talent like Han Fei, once he stepped into the intermediate venerable realm, his strength would definitely be comparable to that of a peak-level intermediate venerable. Together with his space Tao, ordinary people were no match for him at all. However, as a half-king powerhouse, would the spirit mermaids be afraid of this? His heart stirred, and he had an idea. The spirit mermaids and mermaids roared. Why not? However, we need an advanced venerable to join this battle. Hearing this, Ma Yuan immediately shouted, Bullsh *T, this is a battle between intermediate venerables. What's the big deal if an advanced venerable joins? The spirit mermaids and mermaids said, You proposed the group battle. Besides, I didn't say that the Demon Beast Alliance doesn't allow advanced venerables to join the battle. As it happens, we haven't had any battles in the past few years. Then let's test the beginner, intermediate, and advanced levels to see if the Demon Beast Alliance has really become arrogant in the past 2 years. The spirit mermaids and mermaids deliberately said that they wanted to test their strength across 3 realms. In fact, it was nothing more than a plan in its mind. Ma Yuan was about to respond, but the white ferret said with a smile, Let me do it. As soon as the white ferret finished speaking, the lynx took a step forward. Let me do it. I'm afraid they just want to spy on you and see if you have reached the peak. I'll do it. The white ferret shrugged. Okay, you do it. The lynx took a step forward and meowed, which spread throughout the life and death gorge. The lynx said, I want to eat fish. You'd better send a fish up. Seeing the lynx step forward, Neodali knew that it must be a middle-level venerable. He had already reached the peak of the intermediate level and had fought in more than 30 battles, so he was very experienced. Neodali took a step forward. Me too. Han Fei was wondering if he should show his true strength if the other party sent an advanced venerable. At this moment, Neodali suddenly joined the battle, which meant that the other party could send 2 middle-level venerables at once. Han Fei hurriedly shouted, Mid-level venerables, don't come anymore. Brother Qilin, Brother Fat 7, do you dare to come up and fight me? Han Fei originally planned to send 3 more junior venerables in addition to the lynx. In this way, if he burst out, he could at least kill 1 or 2 more people in an instant. However, it didn't matter if Neodali came. Anyway, as long as the other party sent a junior venerable, they would be dead. Ma Qilin and Fat 7 were stunned when they heard Han Fei's call. Damn, this is the first time we've met. Besides, there are only advanced venerables on the battlefield. If we go up, won't we be killed in minutes? However, as venerables, neither Ma Qilin nor Fat 7 would be afraid to fight. Besides, with the lynx, they were confident. On the sea demon's side, the spirit mermaid and mermaid said lightly, Yu Meng Long, Yu Kong, Hailianxing by Yuhua, you 4 go up, and 1 more person, Zhang Wandian, you come. With the voice of the spirit mermaid and mermaid, the people who were called stepped forward one after another. When the name Zhang Wandian was called out, a mountain 3,000 kilometers away split open and a long tentacle pulled out from the belly of the mountain. A strange giant black octopus was crossing over. Chapter 1538. A group battle at the Venerable Realm was a big deal no matter where it was. Even in the Wall of Death, it had been decades since a fight had happened. When Han Fei heard the word decades, just now, he didn't feel good. If you knew that there might not be a large-scale group battle outside for hundreds of years, what would you think? Mountain Cat stepped beside Han Fei. He liked to be called Mountain Cat. Among all the cats on the Beast Island, only Mountain Cat had grown to the advanced Venerable Realm. Of course, although tigers and leopards also belonged to the cat family, their breeds were too different. However, perhaps because he had been with these creatures for a long time, Mountain Cat didn't feel that his aura was inferior to any of them. At this moment, Mountain Cat looked to Han Fei and said, Bai Yuhua is an advanced venerable. Leave him to me, but you have to know his Tao. His true form was a brush, and he could draw the strength of an Exalt realm expert in one go. Or he can bind a space and draw you into the painting. It was the first time that Han Fei had heard of such a Dao. Draw people into the painting? Han Fei asked. Like arrays or seals, it can trap people? Mountain Cat nodded. You shouldn't have called Ma Qilin and Fat 7 together. That way, it wouldn't be a big problem for us to fight 3 against 3. However, not everyone in the Junior Venerable realm is as strong as you. If they are trapped, once someone bypasses you, it will be difficult to guarantee their safety. Neodali looked at Ma Qilin and Fat 7 and said, You two, after the battle starts, find a way to lead the opponents to the sides and away from our battlefield. Wait a minute. Han Fei smiled slightly and said no. No matter how strong the opponent is, he is only an advanced venerable. If the top forces can't go up, the opponent's junior venerable can come to my side. Han Fei smiled mysteriously. If you believe me, let's try. Eat the 5 of them in one bite. After a while, Han Fei learned from Mountain Cat that in addition to the one named by Yu Hua, Yu Menglong was also an intermediate venerable, good at illusions and dreams. As for Yu Kong and Hai Lianxing, they were both beginner venerables. It was obvious that they were prepared to deal with Ma Qilin and Fei Qi. The last one was Zhang Wandian. Although he sounded like an octopus, he wasn't even familiar with lynx. According to Mountain Cat, this person might have been at the human's undead city. For some unknown reason, he came to the Life and Death Gorge. The reason why he was so sure was because Zhang Wandian had never fought in the Life and Death Gorge. That said, it was impossible for a fella that had cultivated to the peak of the intermediate venerable one to not have any achievements. If this achievement wasn't in the Life and Death Gorge, then it must have been in the human race's undead city. Lynx had said that Blackblood City and the Forest of Terror should be allies. The structure of Blackblood City and the Demon Beast Alliance was similar. The Demon Beast Alliance had 2 enemies, Blackblood City and the Forest of Terror. Blackblood City also had 2 enemies. One was the Demon Beast Alliance, and the other was the human race's Immortal City. They rarely interacted with humans and the Forest of Terror. This made Han Fei even more sure that this so-called cage should be in the shape of a sun. Since this Zhang Wandian often fought with humans, Han Fei thought that he might be more familiar with the human race's means. In any case, the opponent's lineup was exactly the same as his own, which was an advanced venerable, 2 intermediate venerables, and 2 junior venerables. However, Han Fei didn't care about this lineup. After all, in his eyes, these people were all resources. Han Fei's goal was to kill at least 3 of them. The so-called group battle was usually carried out when the 2 sides were of equal strength. Because they were of equal strength, they could cooperate with each other. However, compared with the 5 major professions of the human race, this kind of group battle obviously didn't have much cooperation. Now, there were junior, intermediate, and advanced venerables, so it was obviously more difficult to fight together. After all, the weak needed to be taken care of by the strong. If the weak were eliminated, the opponent's weak would free up and surround the strong on his side, which would be extremely disadvantageous to his side. Therefore, the current approach was the junior venerables would take away the junior venerables, and the advanced venerables would take away the advanced venerables. Han Fei immediately made up his mind. Should I cooperate with Neodali and kill these 2 middle-level venerables first? However, if he and Neodali killed the 2 intermediate venerables, the other venerables would have to run away desperately. After all, it was 5 against 3, and they were in a higher realm, so there was no way for them to survive. After all, it was 5 against 3, and they were at a higher cultivation level. It was impossible for them to survive. Immediately, Han Fei winked at Ma Qilin. Fat 7 rolled his eyes at him. Stop barking. Watch me. Fat 7 shouted. Yu Kong, Hai Lianxing, you 2 idle fishes come over and fight. Fat 7 shouted. Yu Kong, Hai Lianxing, you 2 idle fishes come over and fight. Originally, the level of this battle had been raised to that of an intermediate venerable. God knew why Han Fei called Ma Qilin and Fat 7, and Ma Yuan actually agreed. At this moment, Yukong and Hai Lianxing were wondering how to take Ma Qilin and Fat Seven away. However, the other party challenged them first. Of course, this was a good thing. Swish, swish, the four of them fled one after another and rushed to the left side of the battlefield. And the others didn't even look at them. After all, a junior venerable was still far from them. With a meow, the mountain cat crooked its finger at Bai Yuhua. Hua Hua, come over and fight with me. The mountain cat said to Han Fei and Niu Dali, give me half an hour. Bai Yuhua sneered. Mystic Shadow, do you think you can escape from my pen just because you have a great path? Half an hour? You can't even last 10 minutes, can you? Bai Yuhua seemed to be very familiar with the mountain cat, calling its real name and mocking it. The mountain cat strode gracefully, stretched out its claws, and tore open the void on the right side. You'll know when we fight. At this time, only Han Fei and Niu Dali were left against Zhang Wandian and Yu Menglong. Han Fei was about to choose Yu Menglong because he should be able to easily break illusions and dreams. This was not the first or second time he had experienced such a strange situation. When he crossed the river of time in the sea-quelling painting, with the help of his yin-yang divine eyes, he should be able to easily break them. However, at this moment, the voice of the old turtle suddenly sounded in Han Fei's heart. There is an unknown power in that octopus's body, a very powerful power. It seems to be some kind of rare treasure. I'm afraid his strength is more than that. Han Fei's face changed slightly. Zhang Wandian was already a peak-level intermediate venerable. If he said there was something wrong with his strength, did it mean that his strength had reached the advanced venerable realm? Immediately, Han Fei said to Niu Dali, help me temporarily restrain Yu Menglong. Remember, once you can't resist, tell me immediately, and I'll solve the battle. Han Fei's face became ugly. Originally, he thought that the other party only had one advanced venerable. Now it seemed that there might be more than one. Then, the other party's camp became similar to his side again. If this Zhang Wandian had the combat power of an advanced venerable, he could also deal with him. He just didn't know if Zhang Wandian had just entered the advanced venerable realm. If he had, then he could still kill him. After all, in terms of means, as long as the other party hadn't reached the peak-level venerable realm or had some secret methods, they couldn't be his opponent at all. Niu Dali glanced at Han Fei. No problem. I fought Yu Menglong before. His illusion array can't kill me. Han Fei grinned, and then his face suddenly froze. Kill. This time, Han Fei was very greedy. He abandoned the embroidery needle, Snowmorn, and the infinity water was also put away. Just now, in the battle to kill the crab Qianlong, the infinity water had already exploded. If it exploded again, its power would be greatly reduced. Maybe it could hurt an intermediate venerable, but to hurt an advanced venerable, it was still quite difficult. Swish! Han Fei casually waved his hand, and a 100-meter-long wild water blade slashed at Zhang Wandian. It could be said that Han Fei used all the power he could exert in this blow without the help of the Great Path. Humph! You've learned quite a lot of combat skills. Zhang Wandian smiled. At the moment Han Fei attacked, 9 tentacles drilled into the void. After Han Fei slashed at them, Han Fei suddenly found that the surrounding 500-kilometer radius was actually trapped by an array. The 9 huge tentacles had already turned into huge void shadows directly surrounding him. At that moment, Han Fei still wanted to use the star's transposition technique to escape. However, countless pairs of big eyes opened on those tentacles. As soon as those large eyes opened, the entire space seemed to have been sealed. Fuse. When seeing eyes appearing in all directions, Han Fei didn't hesitate to fuse with Little Black and Little White. At that moment, Han Fei activated the yin-yang divine eyes, turned around, and launched a sacrificing punch, which smashed through one of the eyes in the void of the giant claw with terrifying power and speed. In the outside world, many people were surprised. My technique? How can the Bull Demon King even know I technique? Even Ma Yuan and the others were asking this question. Could a single person master so many messy combat skills? Someone said, I heard that this Bull Demon King has been sealed in the demon subduing tower for more than 2,700 years. He fights with all kinds of creatures every day. Maybe he learned it from them? Zhang Wandian was also slightly surprised. He had considered that his thousand eyes illusion array might not be able to stop Han Fei. However, he didn't expect that it would be broken so quickly. It was almost broken in seconds, okay? As soon as the eye of the array was broken, the shocking knife shadow slashed out. The saber radiance pierced through the air, ignoring all obstacles in space and arriving right in front of Zhang Wandian. This attack was fierce enough. The octopus stretched out its claw in the void, and Han Fei's knife light seemed to be fixed in the air. Zhang Wandian said, "Interesting. Just because you can break my illusion array doesn't mean you can block my soul-destroying eyes." The thousands of eyes on the tentacles spurted out red lasers and swept the tentacles for more than 30 times, directly breaking Han Fei's knife drawing technique. Han Fei grinned. "Since when can an octopus be so arrogant to me?" Swish, swish, swish. Within 500 kilometers, the entire sea area turned into knives. Even the plankton in the sea became knives, the spiritual energy became knives, and the seawater became knives. Han Fei grinned hideously. "Take my blade, Purgatory." Chapter 1539. The core of the Great Way was the use of the Tao. The Great Way was different from the laws. Using the Great Way could greatly enhance one's strength on the Great Way one walked. Zhang Wandian's Great Way seemed to be related to his eyes, which were equivalent to the human eye technique. At this time, thousands of red lasers shot at him. Even with the yin-yang divine eyes, Han Fei could only judge the landing point of some of the lasers in advance and dodge them. However, dodging was obviously not enough. Puff, puff, puff. Han Fei's body was riddled with hundreds of small holes. For Han Fei, this was not a serious injury. However, the power of the opponent's eyes couldn't be underestimated since they could penetrate his skin and flesh. Han Fei stretched out his hand and grasped, and the surrounding seawater turned into a water-shaped blade, which was extremely smooth and looked like a mirror. Swish, 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 countless lasers were flipping, and Han Fei's speed suddenly doubled. In the face of such ultra-long distance attacks, long-range combat was disadvantageous to Han Fei. However, once he got close, the octopus couldn't do anything. In the life and death gorge, Han Fei's scene was very huge. The dense red lasers, after being refracted by the mirror effect, were all over the sky. The scene was like a dense bombardment. On the Black Blood City side, many people saw Zhang Wandian fight for the first time. This kind of terrifying bombardment was already extremely powerful, but even so, it couldn't kill Han Fei. The distance between Han Fei and Zhang Wandian was rapidly shortening. In order to show his strength, Han Fei turned into a giant golden bull and sprinted. Around the bull body, 1,000 mirrors wrapped. After only a few seconds, Zhang Wandian found that Han Fei's speed was much faster than his. If he fought a war of attrition, he wouldn't be able to win. Zhang Wandian quickly turned into a human body, but he still kept his 9 tentacles. Zhang Wandian sneered in his heart. In the next moment, the 9 tentacles tore a huge eye out of thin air. At this moment, there was a mysterious power surging in Zhang Wandian's body, and his aura rose wildly. In the blink of an eye, his aura reached the advanced venerable realm. In the outside world, Ma Yuhan's face changed greatly, and he immediately shouted, "Spirit Mermaid, are you cheating?" The spirit shark snickered. "Don't spout nonsense. Take a closer look. Zhang Wandian's strength is indeed only at the peak of a middle-level venerable. Could it be that the secret technique couldn't be used? If you have the ability, use it too." Ma Yuhan's expression was ugly. He immediately shouted, "Bull Demon King, if you are no match for him, you can retreat." At this moment, Neodali seemed to have just broken through an invisible illusory array. Seeing the terrifying aura emanating from Zhang Wandian's side, he immediately shouted, "Bull Demon King, be careful." Slurp. However, just as Neodali shouted to be careful, the terrifying light beam had already shot out. In an instant, it enveloped Han Fei. For a moment, everyone was looking at the dark blue pillar of light. Zhang Wandian sneered. Do you think a low-level venerable like you can resist my soul extermination? Bang! Suddenly, a splash appeared in the pillar of light. The sacrificing punch blasted out from the laser beam, but it was completely destroyed after it had traveled for more than 10 miles. Gotcha! Outside Han Fei's body, the golden bull shadow began to collapse. At this moment, Neodali left Yu Menglong and rushed over quickly. On the other side, Mountain Cat, who had just flown out, saw that Zhang Wandian could use the power of an advanced venerable, and it was a soul attack. How could he let this happen? Meow. Bai Yuhua chuckled. You think I don't exist? Do you think I don't exist? As soon as Mountain Cat tore the void, he saw that the void was filled as if it had never existed. Pop, pop, pop. In an instant, Mountain Cat split into thousands of incarnations, tearing open the void. You only have one pen. Let's see how many places you can draw. Bai Yuhua chuckled. Then let's see who gets there first. With that, Bai Yuhua raised his pen and drew, and a big round hole appeared. However, this was not a teleportation array, but a door. Mountain Cat's pupils suddenly shrank. At this time, it was too late to stop him. Although he was not very far from Bull Demon King, his speed was definitely not as fast as Bai Yuhua. In the meantime, there was at least a gap of 5 minutes. Neodali and Bull Demon King had to face 2 advanced venerables and a peak-level intermediate venerable. The consequences could be imagined. Neodali run. In Mountain Cat's view, Bull Demon King was being bombarded at this moment. The power of Zhang Wandian's blow was not over yet. Although Bull Demon King seemed to be still resisting, that was only because Zhang Wandian's strength was not enough. If he was a real advanced venerable, Han Fei should have been bombarded into pieces at this moment, waiting to be reborn from a drop of blood. When Mountain Cat's voice came, Neodali's situation was not very good. She was about to help Han Fei, but she heard Yu Menglong suddenly sneer. "Want to run? Did you ask me? Dream intruder." Moo! At this moment, Han Fei let out a shrill cry, and his body expanded to 100 meters. In the blade purgatory, endless knife currents seemed to be blasting at Zhang Wandian. However, the tens of millions of eyes on Zhang Wandian's tentacles erupted with lasers. He wanted to end the battle quickly. As long as he could hold on for another 3 seconds and crush the Bull Demon King soul, he would definitely die. The Half-King Spirit Mermaids and Mermen of Black Blood City smiled at this moment. This time, I finally won. Killing 2 cows is not bad. 1 second, 2 seconds, 3 seconds. Just after 3 seconds, a door in the void was opened, and Bai Yuhua walked out of the door. And at this time, Neodali also rushed out of the dream space, running wildly into a black light, rushing over. Zhang Wandian smiled and said, "Kill Neodali. This Bull Demon King is powerless now." Bai Yuhua smiled gently, raised her pen, and began to draw. "I can make it. Kill this cow first. Void, solidification. Void shattering. Oh, you're all here? Although it's a little different from the plan, it's indeed a bit interesting." Hearing this calm and arrogant voice, Zhang Wandian's face suddenly changed. He only felt that there was a terrible force gathering in the beam of light of his soul-destroying eye. Moo! At that moment, he saw a rod shadow cross thousands of miles in the blink of an eye and directly penetrate his soul-destroying eye. The shadow of the rod was too fast, and its power was beyond his expectations. An advanced venerable in the outside world, the smile on the face of the spirit mermaids and mermen suddenly froze. At this moment, he looked angrily at Ma Yuhan and shouted, "You are the cheaters." Although Ma Yuhan was also very shocked, he responded contemptuously, "Open your eyes and look. The Bull Demon King is a genuine peak-level junior venerable, who doesn't have a powerful secret method these days. How can the primitive divine bull be as weak as you think?" In fact, while Ma Yuan shouted, he was also very nervous. Damn, this is too exciting. Just a second ago, the Bull Demon King seemed to be killed at any time. But the next second, he actually turned the tables? Zhang Wandian exclaimed. His 1,000 eyes merged, and the beam of light reappeared, trying to resist Han Fei's sacrificing punch. However, just when everyone was shocked, Bai Yuhua suddenly exclaimed. Why is my painting ineffective? However, at this moment, it was no longer a question of whether to paint or not, because Han Fei had disappeared. Zhang Wandian's heart trembled inexplicably, and he felt a life-and-death crisis. Rip! The void was torn apart. 2 rays of silver light burst out, and Zhang Wandian was directly cut into 4 pieces. At this moment, Zhang Wandian was certainly not dead. Otherwise, it would be looking down on him, a creature with several brains. He shouted, "Soul explosion." However, nothing happened in the next moment. Instead, he felt that his surging spirit had been invaded by something. Rumble. In the next moment, Zhang Wandian blew himself up uncontrollably. Han Fei smiled leisurely. I forgot to tell you, this place is forbidden. Kacha. In the sky, a red crack reappeared. In just a few seconds, the battle was beautifully reversed, and a peak-level intermediate venerable died so easily. Han Fei hadn't finished absorbing the feedback from Zhang Wandian's soul. A big brush appeared in Bai Yuhua's hand, and he drew a circle under him. Han Fei knew that something was wrong. His forbidden space had been broken. Swish! Han Fei took a step and shot out the embroidery needle. Knock on the heavenly gate. Puff! Bai Yuhua's body was pierced, but the next moment, he and himself turned into a painting, and his body had appeared thousands of kilometers away. Oh, at this moment, Han Fei couldn't care less. In one step, he shortened the distance between the enemy and himself, and the 100-beast soul-devouring roar directly blasted into Bai Yuhua's mind. The latter just wanted to escape at this moment. Zhang Wandian died too quickly. The bull demon king hid his strength, but in fact, he was an existence that could kill an advanced venerable in seconds. Besides, Lynx was still on his way. In at most 2 minutes, Lynx would arrive. He had to escape in 2 minutes. However, Han Fei shouted again, "This place is forbidden." But Bai Yuhua sneered, "Don't waste your energy. You haven't fully mastered the power of the Great Path. You may be able to trap others, but you can't trap me." Bai Yuhua raised his hand and sketched out a still blue image. Bai Yuhua shouted, "Time freeze. F***CK. Momentary time." At that moment, in the eyes of the outside world, that space, including Han Fei and Bai Yuhua, and even the seawater, had stopped flowing. However, it was in that frozen time that a spear light instantly penetrated Bai Yuhua's body. Puff! Bai Yuhua's body was pierced through, but this couldn't hurt his foundation. His brush was not affected by space, and he was about to draw himself out of the battlefield. However, Han Fei didn't do nothing either. With a thought from Han Fei, in this temporary frozen time, the void lines actually swallowed Zhang Wandian's soul. Han Fei felt refreshed. Turning his head, he found that there were still more than 200 points left, and his soul power would be completely repaired. Immediately, an invincible will suddenly emerged from Han Fei's body. The power of his will was not affected by the time freeze, and he pulled it out of thin air, grabbing a wisp of strange light blue light. Wow, the old turtle was shocked. What kind of technique is this? It can even catch time? Chapter 1540. Rip, the blade of time that Han Fei grabbed cut Bai Yuhua in an instant. Bai Yuhua's body aged at a speed visible to the naked eye. From his body to the pen, he was directly decayed. Han Fei didn't know that the Hinayana knife manual was so powerful. There was only one technique in the book, and that was knife drawing. Although the combat skill said that everything could be turned into a knife with the knife drawing technique. However, Han Fei never thought that he could take time out of it. Even when he tried to stop Bai Yuhua with his invincible will, Han Fei just wanted to pull out the space crack. Who the hell knew that he had pulled out the blade of time by mistake? Rumble. In the sky, another red crack appeared, and another venerable died. Han Fei hurriedly grabbed Bai Yuhua's soul with the void lines, but to his surprise, he didn't know if it was because of the power of time, but Bai Yuhua's soul had decayed. The absorption of his soul power was even worse than that of a junior venerable. If there was no accident, Han Fei only absorbed less than 500 points of soul power. But even if he only absorbed 500 points of soul power, Han Fei's soul power had been repaired. At this moment, Han Fei was a real peak-level junior venerable. Han Fei felt refreshed, and in an instant he felt the signs of a breakthrough. When his soul power and physique had reached the required level, if he couldn't continue to squeeze out his potential, he could only make a breakthrough. However, Han Fei felt that he still had room for growth and could continue to become stronger, so he forcibly suppressed this desire to make a breakthrough. Rip! Lynx tore the void. Lynx was furious. Who could have expected that the battle would change so quickly? Sure enough, the Bull Demon King still couldn't hold on for 3 minutes. The crack in the sky reappeared, and Lynx even burned his blood to come here. He knew that only one of them had died, and there was still another waiting for him to save. However, when Lynx tore the void and returned here, he happened to see the Bull Demon King throwing away a decayed skeleton. Lynx was dumbfounded. "You're not dead?" Mountain Cat turned his head and saw Yu Menglong, who had given up on chasing Niodali and was already running away at full speed. Looking at Han Fei again, Mountain Cat found that although Han Fei's realm was still at the peak of a junior venerable, his aura was already on par with his. For a moment, Mountain Cat felt uncomfortable. "Am I seeing things?" Han Fei shouted, "Don't leave a single one alive. Kill them all." After that, under the shocked gazes of Mountain Cat and Niodali, Han Fei had already turned into a golden light and rushed towards Yu Menglong. Even though Mountain Cat could not accept this fact, if the Bull Demon King was not dead, then who was? Lynx immediately looked at the feather-like creature that was so rotten that it couldn't be any more rotten. Who else could it be but Bai Yuhua? Hiss! Mountain Cat was shocked. He killed Zhang Wandian and Bai Yuhua. Niodali was dumbfounded as well. She knew that Han Fei was powerful, but she didn't know that Han Fei was so powerful. It was one thing for him to surpass a realm and kill an enemy. You actually crossed 2 realms in succession? Niodali swallowed his saliva. "I think so." Mountain Cat's expression suddenly changed. "I'll stop you, Kong, and Hai Lianxing. You go after the Bull Demon King." At this time, Mountain Cat's heart was surging. In this battle, 2 high-level venerables had already fallen. Then, he was still present in this battle, so he had to kill at least 2 more. Since Han Fei could kill 2 high-level venerables, then Yu Menglong couldn't possibly escape. Therefore, as long as he stopped Yukong and Hai Lianxing, the 5 venerables of Black Blood City would be wiped out in this battle. At this moment, almost all the venerables watching the battle, even the explorers, realized this problem. As long as Black Blood City didn't save people, then in a life and death gorge, none of the remaining 3 venerables of Black Blood City would survive. This was the disadvantage of surpassing 3 realms in combat power. Most importantly, it was the spirit mermaids and mermen who proposed to have the high-level venerables enter the battlefield. In one day, 7 venerables died. Even Black Blood City couldn't bear such a blow. Immediately, the spirit mermaids and mermen led the crowd and flew to the life and death gorge, shouting at the same time, "We admit defeat in this battle. This battle is over." Ma Yuhan also led the crowd. Bullsh *T. Does Black Blood City intend to break the rules of the life and death gorge? If you want to break this rule, then don't blame me for starting another great battle. White Martin shouted, "Humph! Black Blood City, can't you afford to lose? If you want to fight, I'll keep you company." Greenwood sneered, "It's been a long time since I launched a large-scale group battle. Let's see if Black Blood City still has the courage to start a war after losing 7 venerables." In the outside world, the Demi-Kings and Peak Stage venerables were extremely fast. While smiling, they collided with each other. Those below the Peak Stage were still on the way. They couldn't be so fast, so they needed time. And this time was enough for Han Fei. When he burst out the combat power of a high-level venerable, Han Fei knew that next time he wanted to fight with the venerables of Black Blood City, that wouldn't be easy. They could be fooled once, but they couldn't be fooled all the time, right? Han Fei's original plan. Anyway, the Demon Beast Alliance still had the Forest of Horrors. At that time, he would go to the Forest of Horrors again. In the end, when there was really no place to go, he would go to the immortal city of the human clan and stroll around again. In the end, when there was really no one to fight with him, he could tentatively cross the so-called front, sneak into the territory of Black Blood City, and do something. Of course, these were all Han Fei's previous ideas. But at this moment, Han Fei felt that he could actually spend some time to make a breakthrough in the Demon Beast Alliance. At that time, his strength would be pushed to the peak stage of the mid-level Venerable. With the trace of power of what he had accumulated in the time acceleration in Forge the Universe, he would probably be able to consolidate the realm of the mid-level Venerable in only 2 or 3 years. At this moment, Yu Menglong's speed naturally couldn't compare with Han Fei's. In just about 2 minutes, Han Fei had already caught up. After all, he didn't practice the close-distance technique for nothing. The moment Yu Menglong appeared in his field of vision, Han Fei immediately felt that there seemed to be a fog in front of him. There was a vague power that seemed to want to confuse his consciousness. However, with the Yin-Yang Divine Eyes, he could easily see where Yu Menglong was in the fog. At that moment, Han Fei chased all the way, but Zhang Xuanyu, Xia Xiaochan, Lu Rinquang, the Thug Academy, the Thousand Star City, the Age of Chaos. All kinds of times and characters appeared around Han Fei. Despite Han Fei's strong will and the Yin-Yang Divine Eyes that could see through everything, he was still distracted by this so-called art of confusion. Swish, Han Fei tapped his feet, and his speed was extremely fast. In an instant, he surpassed Yu Menglong. Just when the two were only a few hundred kilometers away from each other, Han Fei's mind moved, and the space of 100 kilometers was directly shortened. Yu Menglong was shocked and hurriedly urged the stories and figures in Han Fei's memory to shake and bombard Han Fei's soul. There's a restrictive spell here, Sacrificing Punch. In terms of physique, strength, and spells, this Yu Menglong couldn't compare with Han Fei in any aspect. Under the bombardment of Han Fei's punch, all his bones were crushed, and the void lines directly locked him. At this moment, Han Fei split more than 1,000 points of soul power and scattered them into his limbs and bones. In his hand, Snowmorn appeared, and he nailed Yu Menglong with a sword, freezing his whole body into pieces. Seeing that Yu Menglong was still alive, Han Fei activated the navigator in his mind. Han Fei directly stretched out his hand and extracted a void dozens of kilometers away. The void saber twisted, and with a cracking sound, a crack appeared in the sky. It only took 2 minutes. The spirit mermaids and Ma Yuan had just fought, and Yu Menglong had died. Han Fei put Yu Menglong's bones and shattered soul into Forge the Universe and slowly absorbed this person's soul. Now, there were still 2 people waiting to be harvested. For Han Fei, it was both vitality and soul. When Yodali arrived, he couldn't find Han Fei at all. Here, there were only traces of the battle, as well as some broken limbs and remains. Needless to say, in just a few minutes, Han Fei had already killed these people. Neodali really felt his blood freeze. In this life, he had never felt that the Water Buffalo clan was so fierce. A junior peak-level venerable killed a peak-level venerable? Moreover, it only took a few breaths of time. This had completely subverted his view of life. Ma Qilin and Fat Seven both felt their blood freeze. They were shocked. How long had it been since the battle started? 3 venerables had already died in a row. If it weren't for someone saying that the people of Black Blood City were dying, Ma Qilin and Fat Seven would have made an appointment to run away. Originally, this kind of battle that spanned 3 levels was enough to make people tremble in fear. The plan that Han Fei said before to lure people to his side hadn't even been implemented yet. But 3 King venerables had already died. Suddenly, there was a rumbling thunder in the sky. Qilin, Fat Seven, Stall Yukong, and Hai Lianxing. The other 3 venerables of Black Blood City have already died. These 2 must die. Hiss. As soon as Ma Qilin heard his father's order, his blood surged, and he stamped his hooves, creating huge waves. Ouch, 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 the donkey roared. Oh no, Qilin roared, and the seawater flowed backward. Fat Seven was even more ferocious. Thousands of big thorns burst out of his body, blocking the void. Even if he had to burn his essence blood, he had to kill the 2 of them. Yukong and Hai Lianxing had already been fighting crazily. Seeing that Ma Qilin and Fat 7 wouldn't let them go, the two immediately exchanged a look. Yukong suddenly rushed at the two, his body expanding and his power collapsing. Ma Qilin exclaimed, "Is this guy going to blow himself up?" Fat 7 roared, "Huh, don't let him go even if he blows himself up." The two of them glanced at each other and joined forces to attack Yukong. Rumble, generally speaking, it wasn't difficult for people in the same realm to escape as long as they didn't try to kill them. Under the entanglement of Ma Qilin and Fat 7, Yukong blew himself up, and Hai Lianxing grabbed a fish scale and fled. However, as soon as the two fled for thousands of kilometers, they saw the void was torn apart and Lynx had arrived. Lynx was about to take action when he felt the void shake and a figure came straight to this place. The next moment, the void was torn apart, and Han Fei had already appeared here. Lynx couldn't help grinning. "So fast. This is your first battle, so I'll leave the battle records of these two venerables to you. But you have to leave some space for this cat. I really want to eat fish." Han Fei grinned. "Of course." Chapter 1541. The combat power of two advanced venerables was chasing two peak-level junior venerables. How could they not kill them in seconds? Unless the two peak-level junior venerables had Han Fei's background and opportunities. Without any suspense, Yukong and Hai Lianxing were smashed by Han Fei as soon as Yukong was reborn. When Ma Qilin and Fat 7 caught up and saw this scene, they couldn't help but swallow their saliva. Just now, when Han Fei first came to the Life and Death Gorge, they were only surprised because of a bull of the Water Buffalo clan. But now, they had long forgotten Han Fei's race and realm. As the saying goes, seeing is believing. Han Fei personally crushed a venerable of the same realm as him in front of them. Wasn't this shocking enough? When Yukong died, Hai Lianxing chose to self-destruct as soon as possible. Unfortunately, with Han Fei and Mountain Cat there, how could they give him a chance to self-destruct? Hai Lianxing's feet were shrouded in shadows, and his body stiffened there. And Han Fei didn't hesitate to kill Hai Lianxing with a slash of his knife. Above the sky, rumble, rumble. In less than an hour, 7 venerables died, which directly shocked everyone inside and outside the Life and Death Gorge. Outside the Life and Death Gorge, the explorers who watched the whole battle were already roaring. The roar of the beasts shook the world like a bell. Rolling ripples spread for thousands of miles. Someone was excited. Too strong. The Bull Demon King is really too strong. 3 battles and 7 kills. The first person in the history of the cage. Someone's face turned red, and his eyes were full of admiration. The Bull Demon King told us that it is also possible to fight across realms. Our bodies are strong, so why can't we fight across realms? Kacha! Someone was so excited that his blood rushed to his head, and his spiritual energy burst out, directly breaking through the realm. For a moment, the Demon-Beast Alliance was shouting crazily. There was no need for anyone to give an order at all. As a messenger, a white wolf as swift as a shadow had already rushed to the teleportation array in the rear and took the initiative to report the good news. In fact, the Beast Island had long been in an uproar. Lei Xiao was the first person Ma Yuhan asked to report back to the Beast Island. His speed was so fast that it only took him less than an hour to arrive at his destination. Lei Xiao ran from teleportation array to teleportation array. When they were about 200,000 li away from the Thousand Beast Island, Lei Xiao shouted out loud because he knew someone would hear him. Victory at the Life and Death Gorge. Demon Bull King killed Prawn Wensi in 30 breaths, showing the domineering might of our Demon Beast Alliance. When Lei Xiao was about to enter the Thousand Beast Island, he shouted again, "Victory report! Victory report!" Demon Bull King slaughtered the Venerable, killing Prawn Wensi in 30 breaths. Roar! As soon as Lei Xiao's voice came out, the entire myriad Beast Island spontaneously roared. These days, they also knew who the Demon Bull King was. That was the new Venerable Bull. A giant wolf howled towards the sky. Good news. The Bull Demon King has killed Prawn Wensi within 30 breaths. Dong, dong, dong. There was a creature with a fat body that was beating a drum. Its body vibrated. Good news. While everyone was cheering in the valley, tens of venerables had already gathered at the Great Rift Gorge. These people had already seen the changes in the sky. In reality, although the red marks on the horizon were faint, the weather had changed. Many demon beasts that weren't venerables raised their heads towards the sky, wanted to see if this was the sign of a venerable's death. Someone sighed. No, Demon Bull King has only been at the Life and Death Gorge for less than 4 hours, right? He killed a venerable just like that? Someone said in surprise, as far as I know, that Prawnwincy's strength is quite extraordinary. He's a peak elementary venerable. There are those who can beat him, but those who can kill him. Crocodile shouted. Nonsense! Is Brother Bull's strength an ordinary peak elementary venerable? Even Yodali was beaten to the ground. Wouldn't Prawnwincy be a piece of cake? Xiong Chaoshui walked over with a piece of dried fish. Old Crocodile's words make sense. Demon Bull King can easily defeat an elementary venerable. This is already a foregone conclusion. Killing one venerable is enough to make Black Blood City vomit blood. The ape demon also walked over leisurely with Old Goat. Sigh, do you guys want to gather and have a barbecue? I've made a lot of Demon Bull King's seasoning and planted a large area. That thing is simply too long. Roar. A lion roared. Wait for me for the barbecue. I'll bring wine. Old Goat said leisurely. I expected Demon Bull King to kill a venerable. It would be strange if he didn't. These people knew Han Fei's strength very well. After all, those hundreds of battles weren't fought for nothing. Basically, Han Fei had used all of his skills except for those that needed to be kept secret. So, this group of people slowly began to barbecue. For them, eating was not very urgent. They couldn't get enough of the overwhelming aroma. Since it was a barbecue, they could take their time. However, as soon as the ape demon and the others sprinkled various garlic seasonings, suddenly, the old goat's heart stirred, and he revealed a faint smile. Another one? Jiao Mingyue suddenly said, look, there are slight cracks in the sky. The sky has changed color. This should be the sign of the death of the second venerable in the Life and Death Gorge, right? The first venerable, Yao Wenci, died. Because his realm was not high and the distance was relatively far, although the sky had changed slightly, it wasn't so obvious. However, this time, there was no need for anyone to report it. Everyone knew that another supreme being had fallen. At that time, everyone's face became solemn. Knowing was one thing, but was the fallen venerable one a sea monster or a monster? They didn't know. How could they not be worried? Immediately, everyone's gazes turned to Old Yang. Old Goat smiled slightly. Continue the barbecue. Xiong Chaoshui laughed. You almost scared me. It seems that Demon Bull King has killed another venerable. The death of 2 venerables in a row is enough to make Black Blood City suffer. How many years will it take to cultivate him? The Golden Tiger strode over. Woo, I'm not bragging, but it's not easy for Demon Bull King to die. Indestructible Golden Body. Everyone, the indestructible Golden Body, is not so easy to defeat. Insong nodded. Indeed. However, I'm afraid that he will be exposed if he kills 2 venerables and 1 venerable. They had just talked for a while when another voice rose in the sky above the island of beasts. Demon Bull King kills a venerable and kills a mid-level venerable, crabbed Qianlong. Demon Bull King kills a venerable and kills a mid-level venerable, crabbed Qianlong. Demon Bull King kills a venerable and kills a mid-level venerable, crabbed Qianlong. In the valley, many demon beasts were dumbfounded. Someone killed 2 venerables in a row? Wasn't this killing of a venerable a little too fast? However, it wasn't impossible to kill 2 venerables in a row, but it was rare. It only proved that the Demon Bull King was very powerful. Of course, the demon beasts cheered. It didn't matter if they knew the Demon Bull King or not. It was fine as long as he was a demon beast. However, when another more obvious crack appeared in the sky, a rain of blood began to fall. This time around, even Old Yang's expression turned serious. The ape demon and the others who were barbecuing were confused. Another venerable? Everyone looked at Old Goat. Old Goat pinched his fingers. The Life and Death Gorge is in turmoil, but it seems that everything happened in an instant. Therefore, I immediately divined that it was very likely that they were still trapped in a life and death situation. Boom! Again, the red crack appeared in the sky. It was only a few seconds apart. In such a short time, 2 venerables died in a row, and the phenomenon was so obvious. This time, even Yang Shinji wasn't sure. At this moment, all the venerables, including Old Goat, looked up at the sky. They expected that Han Fei would kill 2 venerables in the life and death gorge. But most people thought that Han Fei could only kill 1 venerable. Even if some people joked that Han Fei might kill 2 venerables, they didn't take it seriously. It was just a joke. But now, how many venerables had he killed? This was the 4th one. Gulp. Crocodile Tai swallowed and said, Is a war breaking out in the life and death gorge? Yang Shinji quickly calculated, then frowned and said, No. Even if there is a war over there, I'm not afraid. With 3.5 venerables and 67 venerables, unless Black Blood City wants to launch a world-shaking war. But you and I both know that's impossible. Boom! After only 20 seconds, another red crack appeared in the sky, and a rain of blood poured down. The entire Myriad Beast Island was silent. They were waiting. Obviously, something big had happened in the life and death gorge. Yang Shinji pinched his fingers to calculate, but soon he frowned. This is strange. Why did my divination technique show a mass of chaos? Jiao Mingyue, Xiong Chaoshui, Golden Tiger, Int Song. I order you 4 to go to the life and death gorge immediately. I'll wait for half an hour. If I still can't predict it, someone else will go. Yes. At this moment, they didn't care about the barbecue. They didn't dare to neglect such a big event like the life and death gorge. The 4 stepped through the void, but before they reached the first teleportation array, rumble, rumble, Jiao Mingyue's expression changed drastically. Hurry up, something might have happened over there. Although Jiao Mingyue and the others didn't talk to Han Fei about their specific strength, Han Fei already knew about them. Jiao Mingyue and Golden Tiger were peak stage venerables, while Xiong Chaoshui and the others were peak stage advanced venerables. Their strength was enough to defeat a half venerable. They were extremely fast. After passing through 8 teleportation arrays, they saw a white wolf sprinting towards them. Seeing that they were from the same race, Int Song immediately yelled, Little Wolf, what happened at the life and death gorge? The white wolf saw that there were 4 venerables, and one of them was the great venerable Silvered Song. It immediately said, excitedly, Great venerable Silvered Song, the Bull Demon King killed 5 people in a group battle. He killed 1 advanced venerable, 2 mid-level venerables, and 2 beginner venerables. He greatly increased the power of our Demon Beast Alliance. Chapter 1542. Int Song and the other 3 were dumbfounded. The Bull Demon King killed 5 more times? No matter how they thought about it, this didn't sound very reliable. You slaughtered a peak elementary venerable. This was expected and not surprising. You slaughtered a peak intermediate venerable. This wasn't expected, but everyone could accept it. After all, anyone could have a burst of power, but you slaughtered a high-level venerable too? What was going on? Could a peak elementary venerable kill an enemy 2 levels higher? Xiong Chaoshui roared, Little Wolf, do you know what you're talking about? The little white wolf's voice resonated. Great venerables. The Bull Demon King really slaughtered 7 of them. We all saw it with our own eyes. It can't be fake. The 4 looked at each other. It seemed that the Bull Demon King had hidden his strength well. Int Song said, Go back and tell them that we're going to the life and death gorge. When Int Song and the other 3 arrived at the life and death gorge, there were actually 7 or 8 venerables fighting. Ma Yuan was fighting the spirit mermaids and mermen. The rest were peak venerables. The spirit mermaids and mermen didn't start a war after all. He knew that these beasts weren't afraid of a fight. If they started a war rashly, it wouldn't end well for them. Plus, when Bai Yuhua and Zhang Wandian died, the chances of the other 3 surviving were extremely small. It wasn't as if he hadn't expected this. However, The spirit mermaids and mermen didn't expect that the bull demon king would be such a huge variable. Was the lynx a match for Bai Yuan? Let's not talk about that for now. Zhang Wandian's spells were easily broken by this guy. How could there be such a powerful peak elementary venerable? The spirit mermaids and mermen knew that they had been tricked this time. 7 of them had died in one day. This would definitely be a heavy blow to Black Blood City's morale. Most importantly, the spirit mermaids and mermen didn't dare to fight now. The Demon Beast Alliance didn't know that they had escaped from the cage and lost more than 10 of them. Even the king was injured now. Including today's situation, Black Blood City had lost nearly 20 of them in 2 to 3 years. How many people had fallen? How could it be? Helpless, the spirit mermaids and mermen could only fight Ma Yuan to express their anger. At last, the spirit merman and merman growled, "What a spirit beast alliance, what a bull demon king. Black Blood City will remember what happened today. I'll definitely pay you back double in the future." Han Fei sneered inwardly. Others may not know about the situation in your Black Blood City, but how could I not? In order to take down Shui Mu Tian, the Black Snail King had lost a Saint Realm warrior and more than 10 venerables. Today, if these 7 people were to fall, it would definitely be a serious blow. Moreover, Black Blood City had to have paid a price to break out of the cage and enter the Yin-Yang sky. Therefore, hearing the spirit mermaids and mermen's words, Han Fei's heart was filled with disdain. In any case, he had achieved his goal this time, and the damage to his divine soul was completely healed. He even separated more than 2,000 divine souls and prepared to fuse them with the golden body. At the moment, Ma Yuan and those spirit mermaids and mermen had already returned to their own camps. Inside the life and death gorge, the killing intent was too heavy. It was temporarily not suitable for cultivation. Therefore, whether it was the Demon Beast Alliance or Black Blood City, they wouldn't be sending people to train their troops for the time being. When Han Fei and the others came back, there was a burst of cheers. Qing Mu squinted his eyes and smiled. "Good boy. You hid your strength so well. You obviously have the strength of an advanced venerable, but you showed off your strength as a beginner venerable. This time, the spirit mermaids and mermen must be so angry that they vomited blood." The white ferret said leisurely, "Yes. Little brother Neo, you are awesome. You're the first person in the history of the cage to kill 7 venerables in 3 battles." Roar! In the distance, the golden tiger roared. "Did we miss something? Brother Neo, did you really kill 7 venerables?" Jiao Mingwei said, "How many times do you want to ask? Countless people have said that killing 7 venerables means killing 7 venerables. How can it be fake?" Xiong Chaoshui laughed and said, "Haha, although I didn't see this scene with my own eyes, Black Blood City must celebrate the death of 7 venerables in a row." Insong looked at Ma Yuan and said, "Old Ma, Old Yang, let us have a look. It's really, the weather just now changed so fast that we thought something had happened here, and we're ready to come to help." Ma Yuan grinned and said, "Haha, it's indeed a good thing. Unfortunately, Old Yang can only calculate but can't see. What a pity." Ma Yuan's voice reverberated throughout the life and death gorge. "Brothers, boys, life and death gorge. After this great victory, let's hold a banquet for 3 days. Eat to your heart's content. Roar. Howl." In the cheers, everyone turned their eyes to Han Fei. At this moment, Han Fei pretended to be weak, and his aura had dropped again. Ma Qilin, Fatty 7, and Neo Dali were following him. Neo Dali asked, "Did you consume too much energy?" Ma Qilin said, "Of course. Brother Neo's secret method can allow you to fight 2 levels higher than you. I'm afraid it will be very useful." Ma Yuan also said, "How about it? What's the side effect?" Jiao Mingwei was confused. "Secret method?" Everyone nodded. "Of course. You didn't see that scene. He punched the sea and was unparalleled. Han Fei pretended to be pale and threw down a big arowana, which was exactly the fish bones of Hailianxing. Han Fei said, "This is what I hunted for you guys. I'm afraid I'll have to rest for a while." Mountain Cat tilted his head and looked at Han Fei. "Are you all right? I have some precious medicines here. They're great tonics. White Ferret also said, secret methods can harm your body, but you can't damage your foundation. I have a blood bead here, which can nourish your energy and restore your vitality. Han Fei suddenly said, well, I don't lack these resources. However, if you have fish tendons or shrimp tendons of venerable realm experts, why don't you give me a few? Everyone was puzzled. Why do you want them? However, Ma Yuhan remembered that Zhang Wandian and the others suddenly paused during the battle. He felt a little strange at that time. Maybe it was one of Han Fei's secret methods. He said, that's easy. I have venerable realm shrimp tendons. How many do you need? Han Fei's eyes lit up. Huh. Of course, the more, the better. Generally speaking, this kind of resource was of little use except for forging battle bows. Han Fei had just slaughtered 7 venerable realm experts. Compared with this, a few venerable realm tendons were nothing. Even so, not every venerable one that was killed would be able to become more tenacious. Therefore, after a while, he got a total of 3 tendons in the entire life in Death Gorge. Jiao Mengwe said, when I return to the 10,000 Beast Island, I can find at least 5 or 6 more. Han Fei was overjoyed. Great. Cough, cough. Well, everyone, I'm going to cultivate in seclusion for a while. Everyone understood Han Fei's decision to cultivate in seclusion. After all, Han Fei was only a peak-level junior venerable. Did he really think it was so easy for him to use the combat power of an advanced venerable? Everyone thought that the price for this was definitely not small. Therefore, when hundreds of thousands of beasts were cheering in the life and death gorge, Han Fei chose to cultivate in seclusion immediately, with Niu Dali and the others guarding outside. In fact, after Han Fei set up an array, left a trace of his aura outside, and asked Old Yuan to watch over him, he directly entered Forge the Universe. Who? In Forge the Universe, Han Fei stretched his body, and his face directly changed from pale to ruddy. He grabbed 3 tendons, which was a pretty good harvest. It was time to upgrade the void lines a little. Now, 1 day in the outside world was equivalent to 8 days in Forge the Universe. Han Fei thought, I'm so seriously injured that I have to rest for at least a month, right? In this way, I have 8 months to digest the benefits gained from the battle just now. After quickly upgrading the void lines, it took Han Fei 3 to 5 days to completely integrate the extra soul into the golden body. However, the amount of soul this time was not very large, so the benefits it could bring to Han Fei were relatively small. Since then, Han Fei began to practice the Great Desolate Body Art. This was a body art that Han Fei used to supplement the indestructible tyrant body and was also the advanced version of the Desolate God body. 3 months later, Han Fei's strength had reached a bottleneck. Han Fei took a look at the specific information. Owner Han Fei, level greater than 83. Peak level junior venerable. Chaotic gas, 2, spiritual power, 79999/79999. Perception range greater than 25,000 kilometers. Power greater than 3,999 waves. First spiritual heritage, unknown. Second spiritual heritage, unknown. First spiritual beast, twin yin-yang spirits swallowing fish. Level 73. Second spiritual beast, Emperor Sparrow, level 21. Main art, void fishing, level 6. Sky stealing technique, venerable level, divine quality. His soul power had been in a state of damage when he became a venerable. Even though it had been fully recovered, it was equivalent to the level of a junior venerable. It was stuck, and after practicing the Great Desolate Body Art, his strength had increased by more than 100 waves and seemed to have reached a bottleneck. These two were at a bottleneck. No matter how he cultivated, it would be useless. It seemed that in addition to epiphany, there was only a breakthrough left. Han Fei felt that the bottleneck had been reached, and he could make a breakthrough. However, Han Fei couldn't make up his mind, because this bottleneck didn't seem to be his real limit. When it came to bottlenecks, even if one's soul and strength were to surpass the bottleneck, the results would be completely different. Thinking of this, Han Fei saw that there were still 5 months left, so he began to help disassemble the spiritual energy with the power of faith he had saved in the previous period. At the same time, he asked Little White to add another 5 wisps of chaotic gas to him. After all, the chaotic gas was really useful. It could be said that as soon as he used it, his combat power would soar. He needed to save up a little more in case of emergencies. 5 months later, Han Fei's spiritual energy disassembly rate had increased to 77%, a total increase of 2%. Among them, the power of faith had increased by more than 1%. If Han Fei had only used his power of understanding, he wouldn't have been able to disassemble even 1% of the spiritual energy after 5 months. Han Fei couldn't help but sigh. The road ahead is long, and I will continue to explore. The old turtle almost wanted to kill someone when he heard this. When Han Fei appeared in the outside world and walked out of the seal, he was surprised to see that Neo Dali was the only one left here. Han Fei was stunned when he saw this girl. However, his expression remained the same. Han Fei said, "Thank you." Neo Dali gave Han Fei a weird look and shook his head. "You still haven't made a breakthrough. If you still didn't come out, I would have called you out in another 3 days." Han Fei asked, "Oh, why?" Neo Dali said, "I'll take you to the demonic beast's holy land. Maybe you can get an opportunity to help you make a breakthrough." Asking for votes, end of this chapter. Chapter 1543. The battle on the Life and Death Gorge finally came to a stop. Although Black Blood City lost 7 venerables in one day, which shocked the entire Wall of Death. However, Black Blood City indeed swallowed their anger and didn't dare to make a sound. The demon beasts only felt that Black Blood City had suffered too much and didn't dare to attack again in a short time. However, Han Fei knew that this was definitely not the only reason why Black Blood City didn't attack. Han Fei had a certain understanding of the characteristics of sea demons. When he was among them, there were many smart people there. For example, if it weren't for him, and he was only a mid-level venerable in the group battle that the half-king of the Spirit Shark requested, then the balance of victory might directly tilt to Black Blood City. However, when Han Fei heard about the demon beast's holy land, his first reaction was, what about the Life and Death Gorge? Aren't you afraid that Black Blood City will retaliate? Neo Dali said, don't worry about that. Paying homage to the Holy Land happened once every 5 years, and many people have been there countless times. So, it doesn't matter whether they go or not. This time, you killed 7 of them in a row. Even the old goat isn't sure whether Black Blood City will take the opportunity to attack. Therefore, another half-king realm expert came from the Myriad Beast Island. Together with Jiao Mengyue and the Golden Tiger, there are 5 half-kings and 52 accompanying guards here. Also, most of the explorers have returned to the island, so there won't be any problems. Hearing this, Han Fei couldn't help but click his tongue. 5 half-kings? Son of a B*TCH. With this kind of strength, they could sweep away all the big families in the Thousand-Star City in minutes. Han Fei couldn't help but yearn and said leisurely, Half-King, I wonder how long it will take for me to reach the Half-King realm? The old turtle immediately complained. What? Do you think it's slow? Even the ancient heavenly talents and divine beasts couldn't finish the venerable realm within 100 years. You're already so fast. What else do you want? Hearing Han Fei's words, Neo Dali couldn't help but imagine how strong Han Fei would be if he reached the Half-King realm. Rumor had it that the fake Black Killer King of Black Blood City was much stronger than a demi-king and had almost ascended to the throne. However, could the Dark Killer False Monarch kill a high-rank Venerable Realm opponent when he was only at the peak of the elementary Venerable Realm? Neo Dali did not believe it at all. Neo Dali said, if you can enter the depths of the Saint State, there might be such a possibility. Han Fei was stunned. Is there such a great opportunity in the Saint Realm? Neo Dali put his hands on his hips and smiled. It is said that there is a god's inheritance there. However, no one has been able to enter the depths of the Saint Realm in the past hundreds of thousands of years. As he spoke, Neo Dali stared at Han Fei. Veteran venerables, like them, had basically given up on the Sage Realm. However, Venerable Realm experts weren't the only ones who could enter the Sage Realm. Explorers and law enforcers could also enter the Sage Realm. Therefore, it was opened once every 5 years in order to see if there was anyone among the younger generation who could enter the depths of the Saint Realm and obtain the legendary inheritance. And Han Fei, as a new venerable who suddenly appeared after so many years, gave Niu Dali a little hope. At least in her eyes, Han Fei was different. He was a unique bull in this world, as if he had fallen from the sky. As soon as Han Fei heard that, he was thrilled. It sounded very powerful. After he reached the venerable realm, Han Fei finally understood why there were so many secret realms in the world. Because ordinary secret realms were not enough to attract the venerable's interest. Actually, one only needed to take a look at most of the secret realms to know what grade they were. Basically, the high-level secret realms have been excavated and explored by someone. For example, Han Fei could get the embroidery needle and snowmorn. God knew if it was a coincidence or for other reasons. Therefore, when Niu Dali mentioned the Sage Realm, Han Fei knew that an opportunity had come. On the Beast Island, when Han Fei returned, he found that the number of demonic beasts on the Beast Island had skyrocketed. Most of them were at the Explorer level. Han Fei and Niu Dali came directly to the Great Rift Gorge. This was where the Venerables lived. Ordinary explorers didn't have the chance to come here. At this moment, a barbecue party was going on the Great Rift Gorge. Since Han Fei gave these demonic beasts a taste of barbecue. Basically, there was barbecue here every day. It was just a matter of the size of the barbecue area. When Han Fei and Niu Dali returned, someone immediately shouted, "Hey, Brother Niu is back." Oh, Mike Cheelin jumped over and warmly invited, "Brother Niu, have you recovered from your injuries?" Fat 7 scoffed, "Bullsh asterisk T. Look at Brother Niu. Does he look like he has any problems?" Han Fei slightly cupped his hands. "Thank you for your concern. Some of the sequelae have been recovered. They don't affect me at all." Someone seemed to have returned from the Forest of Horrors and couldn't help but smile. "Is this Brother Niu Demon King?" The news of you killing 7 venerables in 3 battles has spread throughout the Forest of Horrors. Many people wanted to come back to see you, but you managed to make it in time for the pilgrimage to the Holy Land. So, most of them are staying here. Han Fei said, "You've worked hard day and night to resist the enemies." Mad Lion laughed. "No matter how hard you work, no one can beat you." Lightning said, "Brother Niu, hurry up and eat. The barbecue is still hot." Then Lightning shouted, "Where's the wine? Get a few jars of wine for Brother Niu." "Coming." Han Fei smiled heartily. "Since you've invited me so kindly, I'll drink with you." Han Fei, Ma Qilin, Fat 7, Crocodile Tai, and the burly woman, Xiang Tantan, ate until their mouths were full of oil. In fact, it wasn't until just now that Han Fei knew that Xiang Tantan was also a demi-king. But he had just played finger-guessing games with him. It could only be said that on the 10,000 Beast Island, the level of one's realm didn't particularly affect the development of relationships. Of course, the premise was that you had to be a venerable. If you were only an explorer, you definitely wouldn't be able to participate in this kind of party. When you reached the venerable realm, there was generally no such thing as age. Except for the kind of people who were highly respected, such as old sheep, they didn't get along with anyone. After half a day of fun, Han Fei suddenly felt a perception fall on him. He turned his head and found that 3,000 kilometers away, Old Sheep was standing on the cliff on the other side of the Great Rift Gorge, looking at them. Han Fei patted Ma Qilin's shoulder and said, "You guys drink first." Following Han Fei's gaze, they knew that Old Sheep must have something to say to Han Fei, so no one stopped him. After a moment, when Han Fei came to the edge of the cliff, Han Fei couldn't help but ask, "Old Sheep, why don't you go and eat something?" Old Sheep smiled and said, "Generally speaking, sheep like to eat grass. Those guys eat fish and meat every day. I really don't like it." Then Old Sheep glanced at Han Fei. "Bull Demon King, how long do you think we can go out?" "Huh?" Han Fei was slightly taken aback and couldn't help but look at Old Sheep. "Go out? Where to?" Old Sheep smiled and said, "To a world where humans live in the sky and travel by flying boat every day. Or something else. What do you think?" Han Fei's eyelids twitched. What does Old Sheep mean? Fuck, could it be that he had divined this from the heavens? Seeing Han Fei's expression, Old Sheep smiled. "It's nothing to be surprised about. We were born in a cage. but it doesn't mean we can only stay in this cage forever. It's like you're still closer to the beasts after 100,000 years. Han Fei's lips twitched. What do you mean? Old Sheep chuckled. 100,000 years. The ancestor of that generation had long since perished. However, some stories will always be passed down. After all, this place is very small, don't you think? Wang Han. This. Han Fei immediately narrowed his eyes and put away his expression. He looked at Old Sheep solemnly. Who are you? Old Sheep's head was still facing the Great Rift Gorge, and he said slowly, Speaking of which, I don't know whether I am your senior or your junior. However, my ancestor was born in the 100,000 mountains. Han Fei's eyelids twitched. Yang Qinggu? Old Sheep stared at Han Fei for a long time, and then heaved a sigh. So, the ancestor of that generation was called Yang Qinggu. When Han Fei was in the 100,000 mountains, he had indeed met a goat. That was the first goat that he and Shimin Linglan met. However, he didn't know its strength or name at that time. Later, when he was studying in the 100,000 mountains, he learned about this goat. However, he was a loner and lived in a cave on the mountain wall all year round. He seemed to be studying carving skills and recording something. Han Fei couldn't help but ask, How did you recognize me? Yang Shinji smiled. You finally admitted it. In fact, when you used the 100 Battles Divine Hammer, I vaguely noticed that. I've watched every one of your battles. You know the Body of War, the Heavenly Void Divine Walking Technique, and the Star Shifting Technique. Yang Shinji looked at Han Fei. You know the secret techniques of the War Giants and the Heavenly Blue Giants. Then you should know the Beast King technique of the beasts, right? Although you haven't used them yet, you should know the Monkey King 3,000 strikes and the 100 Beasts soul-suppressing roar, right? A bitter smile appeared on Han Fei's face. If I have a combat skill, I have to use it. Could it be that everyone recognized me? Yang Shinji shook his head. Of course not. If you use the Monkey King 3,000 strikes, the ape demon should be able to recognize you. As he spoke, Yang Shinji continued, When you finished fighting those 100 battles, I understood in my heart. You are the legendary Wang Han, but I didn't expect that you would be born in this era 100,000 years later. Han Fei shrugged. It's not up to me what era I'm born in. I can't do anything about it. Yang Shinji said, So, you are not from the demon subduing tower, nor are you from the Water Buffalo clan. You are a human from the outside world. Since you can come in, I think you must have a way to get out. Then, Yang Shinji stared at Han Fei, waiting for his answer. Second update. Asking for votes. End of this chapter. Chapter 1544. Han Fei thought that his disguise was flawless. Who knew that he had already been exposed? He had mistakenly thought that no one knew about it. Facing Yang Shinji's question, Han Fei said lightly, If I have to go out, the most I can do now is to take a few people there. But their realms can't be too high. Han Fei looked up at the sky and then around. Old Yang, in the outside world, this place is called the Wall of Death. Everyone thinks that there are countless dangers hidden here. In fact, it's indeed dangerous here. I was just lucky and happened to appear in the territory of the Demon Beast Alliance. This means that even venerables can't survive if they appear in the wrong place, such as Blackblood City or the Forest of Horrors. Old Yang was listening to Han Fei quietly. Han Fei continued, About hundreds of years ago, Blackblood City found that the seal of the Wall of Death in some places had become weak. So, the Black Killer Snail King began to make arrangements. Until 3 years ago, or a few years earlier, they opened the first way out. Old Yang was shocked. The people of Blackblood City can go out? Han Fei shook his head. It's very difficult. With the strength of Blackblood City, it took several years and a lot of resources, but they only sent a dozen venerables over. They didn't even have a demi-king. The strongest one is a peak-level venerable named Chao Xian. You should know him, right? The old goat took a deep breath. No wonder I couldn't divine this person when I tried to divine Chao Xian a few years ago. I thought his strength had reached the half-monarch realm and avoided my divination. What else? Han Fei said. Later, I launched a battle with the human venerables and killed those venerables from Blackblood City. Only then did the Wall of Death attract my attention. So, I searched the Wall of Death for thousands of kilometers and finally found a place where the seal was weak. Old Young immediately asked, "Where is it?" Han Fei said with a smile, "It's just a gap. It's hard for me to come through. You and most people on the Beast Island can forget about it for the time being." Han Fei said leisurely, "This time, I can come in, which means that the seal of the Wall of Death is weakening." The old goat said, "I don't want the beasts and sea demons to wait until the cage weakens and collapses." Han Fei said with a smile, "Trust me, it won't be long. My guess is that even now, experts should be able to tear a corner of the cage. But we can't do that." "Why?" "If you were proficient in arrays, old goat, you would know that when something goes wrong in one place, it will immediately accelerate the problems in other places. If there were too many problems, the formation would naturally collapse. If we tear open a corner of the cage now, the consequences will be unimaginable. Have you thought about the consequences when the people of Black Blood City and the Forest of Terror escape?" The old goat remained silent for a moment before saying, "When do you think we can leave?" After a long silence, Han Fei said unhurriedly, "Wait for me. When I grow up, when I become a half-king, or why become a king?" The old goat was about to speak when Han Fei added, 100 years. 100 years? Old goat was dumbfounded. He really knew how to brag. You're only a junior peak-level venerable. Even if you have the power to fight beyond your level, you can't become a king. Even if you're a peerless heavenly talent, it's still a question whether you can reach the mid-level, peak-level venerable in 100 years. As if knowing that the old goat didn't believe him, Han Fei said with a smile, "Old goat, I'm 28 years old this year." "Pooh." The old goat was so shocked that he almost fell to the ground. The old goat looked at Han Fei in shock. "How old are you?" Han Fei sighed gloomily. "In the blink of an eye, I'm not young anymore. I'm almost 30 BM." In the next second, Han Fei was kicked hundreds of kilometers away. On the other side of the Great Rift Gorge, the venerables who were still stuffing themselves with food were all stunned, and their laughter and chatting came to an abrupt stop. The old goat said, "Keep eating." I tried to matchmake him, but he didn't want to. Neodali frowned when he heard that. "Old goat is too much. I'm not in such a hurry anymore. It's not good to push him too hard, is it?" Ma Chilin said leisurely, "Tisk, TSK, Brother Nyo doesn't know how lucky he is." Smack, Crocodile Tai slapped him. "What do you know? You should think about which wife you should find now. Shui Ling. Or what do you think?" As soon as Crocodile Tai said that, an ice spear pierced his butt, and a water Chilin tilted its head and said, "Crocodile Tai, are you itching for a beating?" On this side, it was a mess again. The matter of Han Fei being kicked away by the old goat had been forgotten by everyone for a while. At this moment, Han Fei had already flown back with a bitter look on his face. "Why did you kick me?" The old goat said angrily, "Be nice next time. Are you sure you're 28 this year? I know, we didn't stay long in the Age of Doom, right?" Han Fei was stunned for a moment. "Does that count?" "If that counts, then this year. F***CK. I'm already 77 years old. Am I an old man now?" Beam, on the opposite side, the noise quieted down again, because Han Fei flew away again. Mad Lion sighed. "It seems that the old goat is very persistent." Lightning said leisurely, "It seems that Brother Nyo is also very stubborn." Nyo Dolly blushed and snorted at Nyo Kursin and Ni Panpan. "Let's go home and cultivate. You two must become a venerable in 100 years, or I'll break your legs." Nyo Kursin and Nyo Ponpon's faces turned green. "Wait, what does this have to do with us?" On the other side of the Great Rift Gorge, Han Fei flew back again. Hey, old goat, let's talk nicely. Don't get physical, okay?" The old goat said, "Then let's make it 100 years. Since you have appeared, I believe that since you can make the 100,000 mountains teach you a unique skill, you won't let us down." Han Fei smiled. "Of course, but I have a question, old goat." Han Fei's expression slightly changed. "Are there any war giants left? The Beast Clan, the Sky Clan, and the Demonic Plant Clan all had creatures. Only the war giants. Han Fei had not seen any traces of their existence in any place so far. Asked by Han Fei, the old goat shook his head slightly. The war giants, because of the fall of the giant king, many of them died in many subsequent expeditions. Later, they sailed east with the divine boat and never heard from again. At least, in this cage, there was no existence of the war giant tribe. I'm sure of this. Went east. Han Fei let out a long sigh of relief. As long as they weren't all wiped out, he had to leave some descendants. He just didn't know what happened to those who went east in the end. After confirming the 100-year period, Old Goat was a lot more relaxed at that time. He saw the hope of going out. Although the cage was big, it was still a cage. Besides, the environment here was quite harsh. No one would like it here. Most of Old Goat's knowledge came from the ancient jade inheritance left in the Age of Doom. Besides, the Beast Island was only so big, and generations of demonic beasts lived there. The older demonic beasts would tell stories to the younger demonic beasts, and it would always be the same stories. In fact, Old Goat didn't know much. However, only the records about the 100,000 great mountains have been passed down through the ages by chance. Han Fei chatted with Old Goat, but he didn't get anything out of it, because he basically already knew everything that Old Goat knew. He asked him who Shimin Linglan was, but this guy only knew that Shimin Linglan was the governor of the City of Justice. Other than that, he didn't know anything else. After they started talking about this topic, Old Goat said, I was going to ask Neodali to call you out, but since you came out of seclusion, it's just right. You have to go and have a look at the Beast Clan Saintland. That place has existed for too long. My grandfather's grandfather's grandfather. Anyway, since a long time ago, no one has been able to enter the depths of the Saintland. No one knows what's hidden inside. But you are different. You may have experienced that era and influenced that era. Han Fei was confused about the Saintland. At least, when he was in the 100,000 mountains, he had never heard of the Saintland. Or maybe someone built this place later on. Of course, Old Goat wouldn't reveal Han Fei's identity right now. After all, it was too bizarre and heartbreaking for him. Neodali finally met a fellow clansman, and he was looking forward to it. Old Goat thought, so what if you're a human? So what if you're a cow? It's not like I can't transform into a human. In terms of appearance, Neodali is not much worse than a human woman. In fact, it's possible. 3 days later, on the 10,000 Beast Island, there were constant roars. Han Fei practiced the Great Desolate Body technique for 3 days. Although it was useless and couldn't help him break through the current bottleneck, it was at least a try. Early in the morning, Neodali woke up Han Fei and led Neo Kursin and Neo Pampan to the Holy Land. Neodali said, the Saint Land of demonic beasts is not dangerous at all. Occasionally, some people will encounter some small opportunities inside. However, there are no rules for that kind of opportunity, and it only happens occasionally. Kursin, Pampan, and I have gone in many times, but we haven't encountered anything. We can only rely on you. Maybe there will be the inheritance of the ancestor of our Buffalo clan. Han Fei thought, you're the ancestor of the Buffalo clan? He helped me fight. Just because of this relationship, I can't date you. How many generations have passed since then? Han Fei nodded. If there is a chance, I will definitely pay attention to it. Third, asking for votes. End of this chapter. Chapter 1545. The so-called Holy Land of Demonic Beasts was on the Beast Island. Although Han Fei hadn't traveled all over the Beast Island, he had sensed it with his soul. Han Fei didn't find anything unusual before. But today Han Fei found that on a very flat, open space in front of a cliff on the Beast Island, all kinds of demonic beasts had gathered here. Among them, Han Fei couldn't recognize many of the demonic beasts. There were leopards emitting blue and white flames, foxes with wings, pythons with fluffy hair, and wild boars with long feathers and big horns. Han Fei tried to identify them one by one, but he couldn't tell them apart. They were very different from the beasts Han Fei had seen in the Age of Doom. Maybe this was the result of the evolution of the times. New species were born, and the old species died in the long river of history. When Han Fei and Neodali arrived, almost all the venerables on the island were in place. There were 88 of them in total. Han Fei frowned. There were more than a dozen venerables, less than before. Since these venerables weren't going to the life and death gorge, they must be going to the forest of horrors. Han Fei didn't care about this. However, when he and Yodali appeared, a roar broke out in the beast tide. Look, the one next to Venerable Vigorous must be the Bull Demon King. Wow, I heard that the Bull Demon King's bloodline is so magical that he can transform into a human being. Now that I've seen you today, you really live up to your reputation. He killed 7 venerables in 3 battles. The Bull Demon King has established his position as the strongest junior venerable. Once he makes a breakthrough, his strength will be greatly increased. Han Fei immediately attracted the attention of countless demonic beasts. Many people's faces were full of admiration. To Han Fei's surprise, he felt a trace of power of hope. Han Fei was shocked. What's going on? When he was on the Scattered Stars Island, he didn't feel the supply of power of hope. However, on this beast island, only 1,000,000 demonic beasts could see him. Most of these demonic beasts definitely didn't believe in him. So, where did the power of hope come from? For a moment, Han Fei was a little confused. Yodali asked, "What's wrong?" Han Fei landed and said leisurely, "It's just that I've never seen so many demonic beasts gather." Old Goat glanced at Han Fei indifferently, thinking this guy is really good at lying through his teeth. A few people who were familiar with Han Fei immediately came over. Ma Qilin said, "Brother Nyo, this is the first time you've come to visit the Saint Land. Maybe you will have a chance." Crocodile Tai sighed. Whether it was a fortuitous encounter or not, there was no need to take it to heart. Even if you enter the tomb of myriad beasts, don't go any deeper unless you feel a calling in your heart. Han Fei frowned slightly. Han Fei frowned slightly. This sounded like a graveyard. Why did he say it was a sacred land? Seeing his expression, Crocodile Tai immediately explained. When the powerhouses of the past knew that they were doomed to fall, most of them would go there, hoping to pass on their skills. Demon beasts, beasts' inheritance. However, according to the history of the Demon Beast Alliance, the myriad beast burial ground wasn't originally for the purpose of passing down our heritage. It was said that there were secrets hidden inside, and it was waiting for someone who could enter the depths of the myriad beast burial ground. Ma Qilin said, "Unfortunately, this person has never appeared. Venerables like us usually don't have any chance. But even so, our exploration of the depths of the 10,000 Beast Tomb has never stopped." Han Fei nodded slightly. It was because of this mystery that he was interested in it. Unlike others, he had the nautical multiverse. If there was no way, he could find a way out. If he couldn't find a way, he could use the 9-Palace Destiny ruler to change his luck. At this moment, Old Yang's voice echoed in the sky. "Everyone be quiet." When the buzzing gradually subsided and disappeared, the old goat said, "All beast brethren, the quinquennial worship ceremony is about to arrive. The Saint Land will be reopened. Some people will get opportunities from it, and some people are destined to get nothing. But these are not important. What's important is that I have a mysterious premonition in my divination today." While talking, Old Yang glanced at Han Fei and the other venerables. However, it didn't deliberately stop on someone. However, Han Fei knew that Old Yang was looking at him. Everyone knew that Old Yang was good at divination. Was it normal for him to have a premonition? However, Old Yang said, "I have a hunch that we may find a way to leave the cage within 100 years. Wow. What? Leave the cage? In an instant, everyone was in an uproar. All the venerables and explorers were in an uproar. Next to Han Fei, Crocodile Tai, Ma Qilin, Yodali, everyone exclaimed. Mad Lion was shocked. "Old Yang, don't lie to me. Do you really have such a hunch?" Elephant Taunton roared. "Old Yang, are you sure it's within 100 years? Crocodile Tai exclaimed. Finally have a chance to leave?" "Quiet," Old Yang shouted several times. When the beast quieted down, he said leisurely, "What I said is just a hunch. It's just a possibility, but not absolute. My hunch is that in these 100 years, there may be some changes in the cage. Maybe a demon star will appear out of nowhere and save the beast race, but it doesn't mean we can definitely get out." "A demon star?" Many people began to guess what Old Yang meant. However, more people were just happy, as if something called hope that had been sealed in their hearts for a long time was burning again. When he saw the demonic beasts, he was so excited that he knew why the old sheep told him about it. After all, these beasts had been locked up for too long, and they needed hope too much. The environment of the cage was extremely poor, and the living space was also limited. Countless beasts lived here just to continue the descendants of their race. Every day, except for cultivation and fighting, there was nothing else to do. Now, Old Yang brought hope to everyone. Regardless of whether this hope was real or not, there was only 100 years left. Everyone could wait and see. However, when Old Yang said this, Han Fei felt a lot of pressure. He said within 100 years because Han Fei felt that he could grow up in 100 years. But in fact, Han Fei certainly knew that it was not easy to grow up easily after reaching the Venerable Realm. When he entered the Venerable Realm, he had already discovered this. Take this 1,000-beast island, for example. He had fought fiercely with hundreds of Venerables in a row, slaughtered more than 1 or 2 Venerables, and had more than one life-and-death battle. Although he seemed to have reached a bottleneck in strength, Han Fei firmly believed that there was still room for growth in this realm. His growth in just a few years was actually comparable to the growth process of most Venerables in hundreds of years. After all, how many Venerables had a treasure like the Demon Purification Pot? How many Venerables could change the flow of time? How many Venerables could find hundreds of Venerables as sparring partners at any time and place? In fact, Han Fei was confident because of Forge the Universe. But after changing the time of Forge the Universe, he could have more time to grow. After watching the countless beasts vent their emotions, Old Yang smiled and said leisurely, "Just wait. What will come will come. Now, let's enter the Saint Realm in order. Venerables first, explorers second, and the rest even more. Within an hour, if you don't find an opportunity, come out immediately. Otherwise, you will be lost." When Old Yang said this, Crocodile Tai also said to Han Fei, "By the way, you have to remember this. After entering the Saint Realm, if you don't feel the summons or other opportunities within an hour, you must leave. If you come out at this time, you can still find the way back. But if you don't come back after an hour, you may get lost." Han Fei wondered, "Will there be danger?" Neodali said, "There is no danger. You will just get lost in an unknown barrier. Many Venerables have tried to stay in it and not come out, but when the next Saint Realm opens, they can still walk out." Han Fei couldn't help but ask, "Venerables can't explore this place?" Ma Qilin shook his head. "Yes, my father once did this. He was already a half-king and stayed in it for 5 years. After he came out, he said that he was completely lost in the past 5 years, as if he had walked into a world of nothingness. He didn't even see a beast tomb." Han Fei's eyelids twitched. A place where even a half-king could get lost. Didn't it mean that this 10,000 beast tomb had reached the king level? Han Fei couldn't help but ask, "Well, may I ask, how long will this Saint Realm be open in total?" Neodali explained, "The channel will only be open for 3 days. If you don't come out within 3 days, the Saint Realm will be closed. But if you don't come out after an hour, you won't be able to come out for the next 3 days. But you don't have to worry too much about the dangers inside. Although some people have encountered dangers, they are usually not fatal. So, even if you can't come out, don't panic. Just wait for 5 years." Han Fei thought to himself, 5 years is such a long time. How can I afford to wait? I can leave the Scattered Stars Island for 1 or 2 years, but if I leave for 5 or 10 years, many people on the Scattered Stars Island will forget me. When Old Yang finished speaking, the mountain began to shake. The huge rock wall began to twist, and there seemed to be a water-like membrane on it, as if it could be poked through. Ma Qilin said, "Brother Nyo, let's go." First update. Asking for votes. End of this chapter. Chapter 1546. Han Fei had visited secret realms countless times, but this time it seemed to be the strongest. After all, he hadn't encountered a place that could make a half-king get lost before. Many Venerables swaggered in, their figures disappearing into the seal on the rock wall. Just now, after hearing Old Goat's words, Many people were a little excited. Therefore, when these demonic beasts walked in, they all looked quite valiant and high-spirited. It seemed that the opening of the Saint Realm this time was different from before. When Han Fei walked into the cliff, the scene in front of him suddenly became very vast. There was a shallow white mist here, but the visibility was not very low. At least from the perspective of a venerable, he could see very far. However, even so, Han Fei found that his perception was blocked. After all, what he could see was limited. How could it be as far as perception? In the Saint Realm, in addition to the feeling of vastness, there was also a strong dead air. There was no need to identify the direction at all. Han Fei knew that there should be a tomb in front of him on the left. Han Fei said, "Old Yuan, with your soul power, can you see this place clearly?" Old Turtle said leisurely, "No, I just have a high soul realm. However, just because my realm is high doesn't mean that I can ignore the forbidden soul domain. Before you came in, you should have guessed that this secret realm is not low level, right?" Han Fei clicked his tongue. "Old Yuan, as I get stronger and stronger, you don't seem to be strong enough anymore." Old Turtle, Han Fei walked dozens of kilometers with a step, not fast. He could perceive that other venerables appeared around him. It could be seen that after coming in through the entrance of the cliff, everyone appeared nearby. Fat Seven happened to see Han Fei and waved. "Brother Nyo, do you want to go with me? Let me tell you about it." Han Fei shook his head slightly. "No need. Old Goat said that I should see this place from the perspective of a newcomer." In fact, Old Goat certainly didn't say such words. This was just an excuse for Han Fei not to go with others. Generally speaking, no one would go to the Old Goat to ask about this matter. Even if they asked, since Old Goat knew Han Fei's identity, he would cover it up for Han Fei. Sure enough, when Fatty Seven heard this, he immediately said seriously, "Then go by yourself." At the same time, Fatty Seven shouted, "Everyone, don't give Brother Nyo any guidance. Let Brother Nyo see the saint state from the perspective of a newcomer." Fatty Seven's roar actually broke through some of the fog and emitted a pale blue light. Immediately after that, Han Fei heard an exclamation. Ma Qilan was the first to respond. Following that, many voices were heard. "Got it. All right. Understood." Han Fei thought to himself, "This pig really knows how to do things." Han Fei was also surprised that there were so many venerables in the mist nearby. This was the result of perception being ineffective. Fat Seven said, "By the way, Brother Nyo, if you need help here, remember to shout loudly. Otherwise, if his voice was too soft, it would be absorbed by the fog. Once I'm a little further away, I might not be able to hear it." Han Fei smiled. "Okay." Han Fei walked past Fat Seven and quickly headed towards the grave on the left. Sure enough, after a while, he saw many earth slopes, rising and falling one after another. However, in addition to the earth slopes, there were also many skeletons, most of which only had white bones left. According to the bones, Han Fei could judge that as long as these creatures were not buried, their realms would not be very high. The strongest ones were only explorers, and they were not even semi-venerables. Many of them seemed to be new explorers. Roar woo here, the fog was surging, and there was wind. In the wind, there were some beast roars from time to time. They didn't seem to be real roars, but shallow roars brought by the wind from another world. Han Fei frowned slightly. There seemed to be some souls here. However, these souls were far from the level of immortal heroic souls. It seemed that they were just a kind of thought entrusted to this world, occasionally echoing in the wind. Without immortal heroic souls, there was naturally no danger. Han Fei walked all the way forward and walked at least 2,000 or 3,000 kilometers. He found that whether he walked horizontally or vertically, there were desolate graves and corpses everywhere. Han Fei was very sure that he didn't get lost. He could clearly remember that on the way he came, those skeletons were scattered differently. Han Fei deliberately walked back for a while and found that he could also go back here. So, there was no such thing as getting lost. 100 seconds later, Han Fei saw thousands of demon beasts in the explorer level running wildly in the wilderness made of the desolate tomb. When these demonic beasts saw Han Fei, they would basically shout, "Venerable Neo." Seeing the hordes of demonic beasts rushing in from behind, Han Fei realized that he was too slow. In fact, it was already very fast for him to walk more than 3,000 kilometers in 100 minutes. However, it was obvious that this place was still far from the so-called depths of the Saint Land. Therefore, Han Fei also ran as fast as he could. After about 10 minutes, when Han Fei walked about 8,000 kilometers, the surrounding situation began to change. Suddenly, there began to be coercion in the world, and this was the coercion of the Venerable Realm. At first, this coercion was not very strong. However, after walking another 2,000 kilometers, Han Fei learned that, except for a few talented demon beasts, the explorer-level demon beasts basically couldn't come in anymore. At this moment, Han Fei finally understood why most of the demon beasts he saw outside were explorers. There were basically not many below the explorer's level. It must be because of this coercion. When Han Fei saw a desolate grave, the grave was not unusual, but there was a wolf shadow sitting on the grave. When Han Fei came over, the wolf shadow even glanced at Han Fei. Han Fei frowned. "Old Yuan, is this also a soul body? Why don't I feel any soul power?" The old turtle said, "Strictly speaking, this is not a soul body. You can understand it as a remnant of consciousness born from the fusion of soul and will. Generally speaking, these remnants of consciousness have no memory, and most of the time, they are very confused. After a certain time, they will gradually dissipate between heaven and earth. What you see now shows that this guy may not have died for a long time." Han Fei grunted and said leisurely, "I always feel that they died too casually. A dignified venerable should leave behind endless treasures and scatter them between heaven and earth." The old turtle said, "Every race has its own long-cherished wish. For example, many people in my turtle clan fall asleep and then die. This kind of way of dying is actually not bad." Han Fei saw about 2 or 3 situations like this wolf shadow. However, the deeper he went into the Saint Realm, the hotter Han Fei felt. The current environment was obviously similar to the environment when he just came in. But why did he feel hot? Han Fei looked inside and found that there was nothing wrong with his body. Suddenly, Han Fei sensed that a tomb not far away quaked. Han Fei walked over curiously to take a look. However, when Han Fei stood in front of this grave, the grave began to shake slightly. If he remembered correctly, Neodali and the others all said that venerable powerhouses generally didn't have any opportunities in the Saint Realm, right? Han Fei thought of something, and the 9-palace ruler of destiny appeared in his hand. As Han Fei added his spiritual energy to his body, the ruler of destiny appeared and began to quickly float among the fortunes. When the 9-palace ruler of destiny fell on the character G, Han Fei smiled slightly. It seems that something good is going to happen. Is this grave in front of me a good thing? In this case, Han Fei was not happy. The tombs here were everywhere. The depths of the Saint Realm that the old goat mentioned were obviously not here, right? There must be someone who could reach here. So, Han Fei stretched out his hand, and a wisp of chaotic energy fell on the 9-palace ruler of destiny. Han Fei grinned. Change luck. There were 2 ways to use the 9-palace ruler of destiny: changing luck and changing luck. The method of changing luck was to change one's current luck, and changing luck was to change one's luck by force. In the face of a secret realm of this level, Han Fei, of course, directly paid the money and changed his luck by force. The ruler of the 9-palace ruler of destiny floated for a while, and then it turned into an auspicious sign. As soon as the fortune changed, Han Fei immediately felt a vague call from the bottom of his heart. The call was still in the depths. This time, Han Fei had no scruples. In a few minutes, Han Fei had traveled more than 6,000 kilometers. The pressure on his body had reached the peak level of the Venerable Realm. However, the pressure was useless for Han Fei's half-king body. It was just that his soul was a little suppressed. But none of these things mattered. Han Fei suddenly stopped, not because he had reached the place, but because he found that it was raining in front of him. In the rain, the wind was whistling. However, the strange thing was that he was only 1 meter away from the rain curtain, but he couldn't feel anything. There was even no rain flowing over. Fuse, the yin-yang divine eyes appeared. Han Fei saw that there was a mysterious mist between the raindrops. A barrier? Han Fei put his hand in, and the feeling of the falling raindrops was no different. Immediately, Han Fei used the Gemini divine technique, and the white mist body stepped directly into the rain. But in the next moment, in the eyes of the black mist body, the white mist body actually went in and came out. It's just a formation. With a thought, Han Fei directly used the star's passage technique. In the next moment, Han Fei had already entered the formation and didn't walk out of the barrier like the last time. Han Fei took a deep breath, and the power contained in the rain barrier was gathering into his body. However, the natural dripping of the rain didn't change at all. Han Fei removed the Gemini divine technique and looked around with the yin-yang divine eyes, only to find that there was no way around. Suddenly, Han Fei understood that most of the venerables were actually trapped in this place and couldn't enter. The dense fog might be enchanting, but the curtain of rain was the true obstacle. Here, there seemed to be no concept of distance, nor the concept of land. Even Han Fei couldn't feel the passage of time. All Han Fei could feel was the wind and rain. However, Han Fei found that his body was hotter, and the call in his heart was stronger. When Han Fei looked inside again, he found that there seemed to be a mysterious power overflowing in his blood. That was the aura of the essence blood of the god of war. Wow, essence blood of the god of war? Could it be that the thing inside is related to the god of war? Second, asking for votes into this chapter. Chapter 1547. Han Fei didn't know that the essence blood of the god of war had not been completely refined and dissolved by him. In his essence blood, there was still a trace of the essence blood of the god of war. If it weren't for entering this saint realm, Han Fei wouldn't have found this problem. God knew if it was a hidden danger or not. Han Fei said, "Old Yuan, is there any problem with my essence blood?" The old turtle said, "There shouldn't be any problem. The reason why you haven't been able to refine it completely should be because of your realm and strength. Your strength is not enough to digest the power of this essence blood. After all, this is the Emperor blood. Only by constantly becoming stronger and changing the strength of your bloodline can you finally fully absorb the Emperor blood." Han Fei smiled. Now, there's a problem with the Emperor blood. Although there was a problem with the essence blood of the god of war, Han Fei wasn't too worried. After all, the Nine-Palace ruler of destiny said great luck, which was his current luck. Since he couldn't find the way or see the array, there were only two ways. Han Fei canceled the fusion and let Little Black and Little White appear. Han Fei said to Little White, "Daughter, look around. Are there any great benefits here? Help me find a way out." Little White blinked her big eyes and turned around several times in a row. "Dad, I can't feel it." Han Fei frowned slightly. He didn't immediately use the nautical panorama. After all, the nautical panorama could do a lot of things. As for himself, he only had 2 hours. If he could go to the depths of this saint realm, maybe the nautical panorama would be of great use, but now Han Fei had to use it. Putting away Little Black and Little White, Han Fei stretched out his hand, and the nautical panorama appeared in his hand. Soon, the nautical panorama pointed out a direction. Moreover, this direction was constantly changing. Oh, is it an invisible array? Han Fei was surprised. Since this way of walking was rhythmic and regular, this barrier still couldn't escape the concept of an array. However, the realm of this array was so high that he couldn't see it, touch it, or estimate it at all. Han Fei secretly noted that in this demonic beast saint realm, this barrier itself was also a treasure. If he was strong enough in the future, he could come back to take a look. Let's see if I can walk out of the barrier with my own strength. At this point, Han Fei's speed became very fast. The nautical panorama was constantly changing, so it couldn't be considered to have been used many times. After turning more than 300 directions and walking for less than 100 kilometers, Han Fei walked out of the rain curtain barrier with a pop. At this moment, there was no mist or rain in Han Fei's eyes, but a grassland. However, on this grassland, an altar attracted Han Fei's attention. Han Fei was stunned when he saw the altar. Is this the war god altar? Feeling the heat of his blood, Han Fei already knew what this place was. The altar of the war giants? Could it be that this mystic realm was once the territory of the war giants? Han Fei stepped into the air and looked around, but he didn't see the giant king city. This made Han Fei a little uncertain. Perhaps this was just an altar built by later generations. After all, there had been too many wars in the 100,000 Mountains. Maybe the giant king city had already collapsed in the war. Outside the four corners of the war god altar, there were several piles of bonfire wood, but no fire was lit. Han Fei scratched his head. Was he going to worship? Obviously, the purpose of the existence of this altar was for people to worship. On the altar, there were two square bronze tripods, but there was nothing in them. Han Fei still remembered that there was to be a flame there. When the flame formed a curtain, an oracle would appear. The old turtle couldn't help saying, "Huh, an altar?" Han Fei suddenly chuckled. "Old Yuan, do you believe that the gods are still alive?" The old turtle trembled in Han Fei's heart. Impossible. The age of gods has ended, and the gods have fallen. Oh, really? Clatter. Han Fei snapped his fingers, and 4 bonfires were ignited, and the 2 bronze tripods on the altar also burned. Since the bonfire would existed, they couldn't just burn nothing, could they? They had to put on a show, right? So, Han Fei set up a grill next to the bonfire. There were grilled fish, old lobsters, empty clams, sea cucumbers. Anyway, he just roasted a bunch of them. Immediately afterward, Han Fei stood on the altar and recalled a little. Then he put a finger between his eyebrows, leaned forward, raised his neck, and chanted. The great god of war, the 100,000 mountains, the eyes of the earth, the ancient waves in the distant Blackstone city's eyes, the holy city of giants looks down. I pray for the triumph of war. I pray for the safety of my king. 3 pray for the warriors to return to their homeland. V pray for the mountains to never be destroyed. May you listen to the pious prayers of your people. May your glory be eternal, please, given. Oracle, although the 100,000 mountains, the Blackstone city, and the city of giants were gone, and even this kind of prayer seemed to be gone. However, Han Fei felt that this might let the god of war know that someone was still calling him. As a result, Han Fei waited for a long time. From time to time, Han Fei looked back and found that there were no pillars of fire rising at all. Is it wrong? Is the wording wrong? Or is the method of sacrifice wrong? After a while, Han Fei waved his hands and placed the corpses of a few semi-venerable puppets near the 4 bonfires. He helped them put their fingers to the center of their eyebrows, leaned forward, and raised their necks. Then, Han Fei threw thousands of explorer corpses and sat cross-legged under the altar one by one. Then, after thinking for a long time, Han Fei shouted again. The great god of war, the belief of the war, giants, the eyes of the earth, the ancient waves in a cage sealed for eternity under the sincere expectation of the countless beasts on the Beast Island. I pray for the giants to never be destroyed. I pray for the Beast Clan to find a safe place. I pray for all the sea monsters to be killed. I pray for Han Fei to become a king. May you listen to the pious prayers of your people. May your glory be eternal, please. Give an oracle. Han Fei thought to himself, this wording should be able to be changed. After all, the giants used to worship in this way. At that time, they were still fighting. Therefore, the part of the prayer was based on that war. Han Fei thought to himself, I've run out of words. If it still doesn't work, I'll have to dig up the altar. After waiting for 2 or 3 minutes, Han Fei turned his head to look back, only to hear a whoosh, and the flames behind him soared high. On the screen of flames, a few twisted words were written. You're really shameless. Han Fei. Han Fei immediately took a breath. F***CK. You're still here? Han Fei thought to himself, damn it, it's been 100,000 years. Isn't the god of war old? Maybe he has died of old age. However, The god of war responded to his random, sacrificial speech. A line of words quickly appeared on the curtain of flames. I am not the faith of the beasts. When Han Fei saw these words, he was stunned on the spot. Han Fei remembered what the giant king once said. He said that if the god of war was in a good state, he could chat with the god of war. Before, Han Fei thought it was nonsense. Now seeing the god of war's typing speed, Han Fei completely believed it. Han Fei hurriedly said, Senior god of war, I, Han Fei, am Wang Han. In the age of doom, in 100,000 mountains, you even told my fortune. Now, after 100,000 years, the war giants have disappeared, and the beasts are trapped in cages and suffering. The sea demons are wreaking havoc and wreaking havoc. Senior, do you have any solution? The curtain of flames quickly replied, It's better to rely on you than on me. Han Fei was speechless. Hey no, if I rely on you, why is your altar still here? The curtain of flames replied, I don't know who set it up. Han Fei was dumbfounded. F***CK, isn't this a trap? So, after all this, I'm just looking for a useless altar? Han Fei immediately said, Senior god of war, no matter what, you should at least give me some hints or benefits. The beasts have been working hard for 100,000 years, trying to enter this secret realm and find this altar, but they couldn't find it. Now I've found it. If I go out, I can't tell others that I just came to chat with you for a while, can I? Why don't you take a look and help me improve my strength? For example, how about you help me improve my strength to the Half-King realm? The curtain of flames replied, F***CK off. There's no such thing as a free lunch. Han Fei wasn't annoyed and shrugged. Okay then, but, Senior god of war, have all the gods really fallen? Why did everyone go to the east? What's in the east? Are we still going to go east in the future? Before Han Fei finished speaking, the curtain of flames wrote, Stop. Don't come to the east unless you become an emperor. Otherwise, you will die. It's none of your business. Han Fei was shocked. Is it so dangerous? It seems that I have to be more careful in the future. I'd better stay in the Yin-Yang heaven and the Waterwood heaven first. Then, I'll deal with the matters of the 36 mysterious heavens and the mermaids before thinking about those trivial things. Han Fei thought again, I have an auspicious divination. Why don't I get any benefits? Han Fei said again, Senior god of war, well, it's fine if you don't help me improve my strength. However, since you appear once every 100,000 years, at least leave me some benefits. I have to save the beast, the humans, the heavenly talents, the insect clan, and the demonic plant clan all by myself. I'm very tired. It's very stressful. Han Fei finally had the chance to chat with the legendary god of war. Wouldn't it be a long chat? Anyway, I have to get some benefits, right? Perhaps the god of war felt that what Han Fei said might really make a little bit of sense. The curtain of flames suddenly surged up and madly enveloped Han Fei. At that moment, Han Fei's body stiffened, and he seemed to see thousands of pictures in his mind in an instant. However, all the power that he had once studied, researched, and comprehended was rapidly being absorbed by him. When these completely disappeared, Han Fei stood on the altar like an old monk in meditation, motionless. Under the altar, the 1,000 corpses kept a finger pressed between their eyebrows, leaned forward, and raised their necks, as if they were worshipping Han Fei. And in Han Fei's mind, a sentence seemed to appear. Darkness is coming, ominous shrouds. The Emperor's road has no return, and all races will be silent. Go find the way, the 3rd chapter. Asking for votes, into this chapter.